Now I'll start the welcome, which would be included in the video. So I'm glad everybody could join us today. We really like doing these sort of intimate events where we can talk and have a great customer with a great success story. Dave Christensen from RJ Burnside here today, and fabulous meal prepared. So we'll have some time to talk after the fact over lunch as well. And of course, I'm Colin Breckles. I'm the CEO of Castlebreck, and I'm going to give a really brief introduction after asking Shelley Renault with IBM to come up and kick us off. I will talk to introduce the subject matter a little bit, to introduce the domain of what the type of collaboration mechanisms are that people are employing today, and then turn it over to Dave, who will talk about their specific story. Dave's really got a lot of colorful anecdotes. He's a former rugby player and all-around fun guy, and very, very experienced with integration with line of business, how people really use various types of software, not just this type of software. So Dave has a really long legacy working in the enterprise with very capable software technologies used by line of business professionals. And I think you'll get a great deal of the practical issues around it. The theme of today is stories, so everything is presented through that lens, and I think you'll quite enjoy it. So with that, I'll ask Shelley to come up and give an introduction on behalf of IBM Canada.
Okay. All right. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Good morning, and again, my name is Shelley Renault from IBM, and I wanted to just take this time to thank you all very much for coming and spending some valuable time to come and hear these stories. So we are all about getting customers here to talk to you, because they're the best people to tell you how it's working, what they did, what works, what doesn't work, what the value is for them. So really appreciate, Dave, you taking the time to come out today. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes to talk about sort of our strategy going forward as far as collaboration is concerned. For some of you, you may be aware of the big event we run every January. It's in Orlando. It's called Connect. And the theme of the Connect event this year was around energizing life's work. And you know, that's very inspirational, but fundamentally IBM thought this was critical to our success as well as the success for all of the customers we deal with. It's about creating inspired and engaged employees. Because for any of you who have employees, which you all will, it's if they're inspired, if they're engaged, they're going to be more productive. And for an organization, it's around creating these values and practices that allow your people to be able to be innovative, to be able to serve their customers better, to be able to create that culture to allow them to be inspired. Because fundamentally, again, if you have customers who are inspired and you have employees who are inspired, you're going to have success. So a little bit about a global C-suite study that IBM did recently, and it was the findings there, you know, customer-centric is key for everybody. But really, it's changed a little bit, and now it's customer-activated. It's about that reciprocal relationship that you have with your customers. It's about being able to change your course and your path to create new mutual value between the two of you. They're going to be important in the decisions and how you're going to be successful, because everybody today is talking on social media about your organization, about the impact that you made on them. So you need to be able to listen to that. You need to be able to take that information that people are saying about you and be able to change the way you do business, because otherwise you will not be competitive. So not only is it about customer activated and being able to have that reciprocal relationship with your customer, it's about creating that culture so that your employees can, you know, go out and work with their customers on a daily basis, but then come back and share that information. Again, it ties into Colin's theme about connected collaboration. So the more connected your employees are internally, as well as externally, is critical for your success. So you're going to hear today about Dave's journey in this collected collaboration, how do I, what's ROI for my organization? It's maybe about saving time or, for engineers. It's about TD Bank and be able to be the better bank and how they've adopted social so that they can work with their employees to drive more value for their customers. It's about companies like Cemex. Does anybody know what Cemex? Anybody heard of Cemex? Some of you may from being at the event. Cemex is a concrete company. How can, concrete isn't that social, but it's all about using those tools to be more innovative and bringing your organization together, whether it be geographically widespread or just even in the same building. People often don't talk outside their own little network. So it's again about creating this connected collaboration so your employees can be more innovative, can save time, whether it's getting more ideas, bringing information to your customers faster. It's about Boston's Children's Hospital saving lives. It's about, again, networking with doctors who have seen certain symptoms, certain diagnosis that can help save lives. And this idea of being connected through collaboration is critical in all different areas of the business. So a lot of people struggle with that, but it's not necessarily, it's fundamentally dollars and cents are great, but it can be bigger than that in being innovative, getting more customers, and down to the saving lives. So again, thank you very much for taking the time. It's going to be a great event. Thank you, Castlebreg, for putting this on. A great partner to work with, very, very knowledgeable in this field. So take advantage of those skills. Please call upon Connie, myself, if you have any questions. Alex is in the room as well. So all here to help you be successful and, energize your work. Thank you. There you go.
Okay, so we'll go quickly through the introduction. I myself am fortunate to have had years and years of experience on the business side and on the technical side, and the types of solutions that we've tended to provide have been very business facing. So what gets me excited and makes me want to get out of bed in the morning is to work closely with customers and understand where they're going as an organization, and not just to prove it's possible with technology, but to prove that it's doable in the near term, within reach, and that it's not so far out or long-reaching that inertia will stop them from proceeding. So the spin that we come in with isn't to tell you how it is from a business perspective, but to say that we truly will take the time and effort to internalize who you are, what you do, what works for you, what doesn't, and together come up with what we like to call a shared vision. It's not our vision that we're pitching. It's not yours created in isolation. It's a shared vision that we form together about how you can get where you want to be as a business rather quickly. And so we've had a great deal of experience working cross-industry. And when we talk about collaboration, broadly speaking, we always like to say there's two faces to collaboration. There's your external collaboration. And so if we look at each industry, multiple organizations in the same industry may have somewhat similar content and focus as far as their digital experience and web presence. Internal workforce facing, though, we find organizations in disparate industries tend to have many of the same challenges. If you have a workforce and they're trying to work on projects and all work together to eliminate tribes, to work towards common objectives, it doesn't matter whether you're an insurance company, an engineering firm, an electrical utility, a financial services firm, an industrial equipment distributor. We're all over the map. And to a certain extent, medium-sized organizations have some of the same challenges as the really large multinationals we serve. They don't have the same headcount or budget. And so one of the things that we strive to do is what I call right-size the solution, to understand the customer, understand where they're going. So we'll have the same genre of solution. We might approach it altogether differently for an organization that has tens of thousands of employees versus several thousand employees versus several hundred employees versus 75 to 100 employees versus 20 employees, and to go about it a little bit differently, but to help them get where they want to be. So we've really enjoyed doing that, and we've done a lot of work all over the world. In the last 7 years, we focused a lot on Canada, and as a father of two very young children, I'm grateful every time we have a net new customer in Ontario. I do cartwheels if I don't have to get on a plane to serve you, so we're pretty pleased. So today, setting the stage, people feel like They're not ready for what comes at them, and that's what business people are dealing with every day. Tongue in cheek, working the old way doesn't work anymore. You know, if you're trying to collaborate with email in the connected collaboration era, it's kind of like trying to collaborate with fax machines back in the email era. And people do bring expectations to work that they have enterprise grade tools that don't involve this. So I don't want to dwell on it, but the big thing is having a shared view of the work, having a shared view of who's doing what, the communication, the collaboration, the knowledge, and the processes. Having some visibility into that's not trapped in people's inboxes is really paramount. And I won't get too deep into it because Dave's got a lot of really great specific use cases in their company. But really good things happen when people collaborate through shared tools, the right shared tools implemented in a thoughtful manner for the company. And at the end of the day, what you want is a web workplace that brings together all the needed applications from different sources. It's not an island. It's an integrated experience that your employees use. And the digital real estate is at least as important as physical real estate these days when people come to work. So people come to work, and many of you, in an effort to get close to the customer, have a preponderance of branch offices and remote offices. And providing the same capabilities, the same knowledge, and the same resources available to an employee at that remote office in a different city that might have 20 employees versus your center of gravity is really important, both for their execution and for them to feel truly engaged and enriched and integral to the company. And like it's the place they want to be for the very long term. So again, the digital real estate and the way people work together is incredibly important. And people need to work across locations and devices. And so wherever so networked and connected, that people have this expectation. In their life outside work, they have this. There's not a moment where if their smartphone battery is dead, the world stops spinning on its axis, right? That's the way people are wired today. So at work, it's the same. If you're away from your desk, people should be able to reach you. You should be able to get a few things done and off your plate while you're on the go. So if you're on your smartphone, people who are on their desktops or laptops at work should be able to reach you. If you're on your tablet, that mobile device should be a first-class citizen. You should be able to do all the things you need to do. So roughly speaking, when we talk about collaboration, we talk about real-time collaboration versus social collaboration and other types of collaboration. So real-time collaboration would be instant messaging, the computer-computer voice, the computer-computer video, so video conferences and whatnot. And that needs to work across devices and locations. Whatever device you happen to have within arm's length, you should be able to get to work and get something done. Myself, I have a habit of grabbing the best device within arm's length that I have. So if all I have is my phone, great, I'll pick it up. We've got great mobile clients that work across all these platforms. If my tablet's handy, that's one step up from my phone. If the desktop's handy and running, if it's not running, I probably would still pick up the tablet. So that's how people tend to work. And it's pretty amazing. The other thing that we've seen, cloud's made some interesting things happen in business. We've seen a lot of organizations have their line of business people go out and source different solutions for different parts of the business and kind of create the same sprawl out in the cloud that was happening on premises 5 or 10 years ago. And they've seen that as a one-off, they got some benefits out of these solutions, but the lack of a platform approach hasn't really helped their cause. And so customers now are rethinking that. We're a few years into the cloud strategy that people employed. And now they're saying, I need more of a strategic cloud vendor. Everybody who has an on-premise or cloud software solution has a home page, and they would like you to make that the home page for every employee's web browser, which kind of gets some snickers and grins from people when they say, no, your system is system number 74 that we use in this company. You're not going to be our home page. So, you know, there needs to be something that is worthy to be the hub. And the IBM Connected Collaboration platform isn't an island. It integrates everything else you do in the company, and it is such a solution. So it's pretty amazing. You get a mountain of things out of the box with it that you don't have to build, which leads to some of these quick wins. And over time, when you need more capabilities and they're available, you can go out and come in and integrate it. So this is the communication, collaboration, knowledge management, activity management, so seeing the work unfold, working out loud. Social mail, so if you're a Microsoft Exchange or IBM Mail user with Domino, and this is all visible in the solution too. Not as a copy or another solution, but real-time visibility into it. Electronic forms, stop calling it a form that's really a Word document or other type of file that's not integrated. Integrate it into your business processes, integrate it into your communications hub, and unlock a whole lot more value. Document management, quit emailing files around. That's crazy. And having a shared drive in the cloud isn't necessarily the answer either. If it's not integrated into everything else you do, it can in some cases breed more inefficiency. Customer relationship management, everything we do is for the benefit of our customer. Project management, time and billing, skills, tap, and expertise location. So everybody's got this rich past professional history. Nobody adequately knows the human capital that they bring to bear in their company. They don't adequately unlock it, so it makes it a lot easier. And communication, doing it through such a platform is just a heck of a lot easier and more effective than doing it through brute force. And we always like to bring the compliance in. It's not something you have to do immediately, but if that's important to you, depending on the industry you're in, regulated industries tend to do it day one. Other people may do it for more practical reasons after the fact. But there's compliance and archiving things to properly audit what happens and have visibility into it after the fact. So we talked about real-time collaboration as a set of integrated capabilities. I talked about email not being the most effective way to collaborate. So having an activity stream and a home page to see what's happening across your social network is really important. Having profiles to find the people that you need at a particular point in time. So I can find, these are sort of interesting, colorful profiles. Here's an engineering team leader, and we can get a notion of who this person is, their professional experience, what their job responsibilities are. Everything's full text searchable, so that to the degree that people like to share about themselves, it's visible. Putting files up there, you can have the conversation, the collaboration, the versioning, the history around the file, so I won't get into that deeply. Dave's got more specific use cases. I just want to give you a quick intro here. Wikis, so bringing knowledge together. How great is it that every single thing, the whole platform is searchable? Chances are a lot of problems that people have or objectives they have, somebody else in the company has already solved it, so being able to find it really quickly is extremely important. And being able to have knowledge-centric communities where people can share with others is huge. So we've got tutorials and subject matter expertise, and all of this is created by line of business as they see fit. It doesn't have, the key here is it doesn't have to be an effort to solve world hunger. It's just people come into a piece of knowledge that might be useful for others, they take a minute to put it in, and it's not that few to many collaboration pattern that tended to happen with legacy content-centric intranets. So with content-centric intranets, you had this notion that this is the hub of our existence, this is our employee portal or our intranet, and there would be a few people in the organization creating content for the many to consume. In my humble estimation, that's a broken model. If a company strives to head down that path today, they're doomed to fail before they start. A much more effective way to do it is a many-to-many communication pattern, subject to enterprise-grade security and controls, so that the most prime piece of real estate on the homepage isn't necessarily populated with noise. But done right, the many-to-many collaboration that happens with the right platform is profoundly different, and people can capture their own knowledge. So when you think about, a lot of people frame the question maybe a little bit too simplistically. We need a place to put our stuff and find our stuff. But things aren't created monolithically, so we've got a lot of different type of applications that give you some choice. Is it a document you want to upload? I'd argue that everything doesn't have to be a document anymore. When you've got a rich wiki with version control on it, and people can comment and have a conversation around it. You can see on this particular page, Frank Morrison has made all 3 revisions, and we can see the date and time. We can even compare versions. We can compare version 3 to version 2 and see what happened between these versions. So it's profoundly different. Activities, so being able to see the work unfold, stop slaughtering each other with email. If you've got more than a handful of people working towards an objective or solving a critical situation or whatever it might be, emails start flying in different directions and having multiple conversation threads in parallel. It's pretty crazy to try to keep track of it. So if you have an activity and people can reply and you can have a conversation around it, again, it's profoundly different. And the outcome is important though. If you use an engineering metaphor, they don't want to expend their effort on frictional things. They want their effort expended towards productive ends. So without the right tools you spend too much of your effort just trying to make sense of the madness that is your inbox and your task lists. Having a place where you can actually see the work unfold feels calmer, it feels more measured, and you feel like you're a little bit more in control of your life as a business professional. So a few other things, forums, having these conversations. If conversations are had by email, the only beneficiaries of that conversation are the people that are part of the conversation. Analytics, IBM gives you some insight into what's happening and who's using what. And Dave will talk to you about the vibrant utilization at RJ Burnside. Microblogging, again, people reach out and they ask for questions, they ask for help, they get answers. So, for example, somebody asks a question and people quickly respond. Pretty amazing. And finally, the time to value. So you can have things that range from these immediate quick hit benefits out to longer reaching integrations and whatnot. And you don't have to do it all at once. You can start a little bit at a time, pick some uses, get that immediate time to value that really validates having done it in the first place. And it stops inertia from beating you before you start because it's too much to take on right now. Sounds good, but we can't get into this right now. So it's a really great approach. And some people like a cloud approach, some people like it delivered on premises. That's altogether a matter of preference and customer circumstance. We work really well both in IBM's cloud, on the customer's premises, or in an independent cloud. So there's a lot of choice here. And really, you'll get the feeling for how this differs with the status quo and how it differs with other vendors that purport to offer these solutions. I'm not throwing rocks at anybody in particular, but there's sort of this mistaken method of analysis of products that says, I want to put columns for 5 vendors, and I want to put a bunch of checkboxes down and say, what does each one of these vendors have? What's lost there is this is where people are going to work all day. How good are the checkboxes? I want really good checkboxes if this is where I need to work all day, every day, because it's going to affect my life. And so we would assert that these are really good checkboxes. The capabilities that are delivered really work. People really want to use them, and we really get adoption. One of the first questions we ask executives when we go into a company, talk to me about your intranet, talk to me about your collaboration today, and they talk about capabilities they have, and then the next question we say is, well, talk about the adoption. Does anybody use it? Overwhelmingly, the answer is truly no. There's a few team spaces where they stick some files. They've kind of taken a shared drive and put it into a portal or a document management system, but that's where it ends. There's pretty much zero use throughout the organization. So what you'll see is why people would want to use this type of solution versus others. And with that, I'd like to invite Dave to come up. And thank you for being here today, Dave.
No problems.
We're really proud to have RJ Burnside as our client, our mutual client, Hasselbeck and IBM. And there's been some great achievements there to date, and the story continues to unfold.
It does.
I'm just going to go get the orders taken.
Okay.
In between, if we can just take a second.
You want to take a second to take the orders? Okay, super.
Yeah, it gives me a chance to set my computer up.
Aaron, is there any need to disconnect this additional microphone? Would it, or will it interfere if there's 2 of them in proximity to each other, or should we leave it connected in case there's discussion of stuff?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Let's just hope that this thing comes back on.
Sorry?
There's an off button here. I can turn it off.
Okay.
Then we turn it on.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yeah. So we may need to rewind this.
Great minds think alike.
During the Great Gardner Reconstruction, and you didn't die of old age on the way. So just go through a few things. So what I've called this is the connected collaboration the Burnside story so far. I use the word so far because the way I see IBM Connections, or the term we've branded it as Burnside Connects, it's really about moving forward and continuously evolving. Every day we get new use case scenarios, we get new inputs into how things are working, what things aren't working. So we want to see this as a system that grows with the company, grows with the people. Obviously, you know, as entry-level people grow and new entry-level people come in, they bring different IT expectations, they bring different knowledge. So I don't want to ever see Connects as a static tool that we launched, okay, now we're using it and everything's good. We have to constantly think of it as an organism that is always evolving, okay? And you know, IBM will release new versions which will help the evolution process. Presentation outline, very basic. My presentation style is pretty informal, if anybody's ever that knows me. But you know, I like to put things in little buckets so we can discuss them in some order. So I'll just do a brief introduction. I'll talk about some of the business challenges, and Colin's gone through some of them that he was discussing. You know, how we got to IBM Connections, and then I'll take you through our usage scenarios. And I don't want this to be a, hey, we use this and we do this and we do this and this is how you're supposed to do it. But what I think it illustrates is we were able to adapt a product to a very conservative industry, and it's worked out really well. Does it work perfectly? No. Do we still have pockets of resistance? Of course. But I think generally it's probably one of the easiest launches, and I've done about 10 or 11 platform launches in my career. This is probably one of the easiest to, there, go, play. And people went and played and they came up with ideas of their own, okay? The engagement and adoption piece, now this runs right from the beginning, you know, when we first met Colin, right through to today. I kind of wanted to deal with the stuff that we found out, you know, in one spot so we can discuss it. And you can ask questions whenever. If you just want to ask a question, go ahead, or we can leave it till the end. So I am, my overly officious title, I am Dr. David Christensen. If there's a medical emergency in this room, it's not that kind of degree. If you need to know about the history of 18th century England, I'm your guy. I'm the VP of Corporate Support and Risk Management for R.J. Burnside & Associates Limited. So my colleague once referred to me as the Chief Executive Officer of cat herding. I'm the everyman. I deal with pretty well everything from corporate fleet vehicles to leases to insurance contracts, support systems, administrative systems. One of my big areas is thought leadership around what does the company need to execute its critical mission statements from a technology and platform point of view. How do we get there? I'm the what should we do guy, and the IT department are what can we do. So we work in tandem to come up with solutions like Connects, like FileNet, like Deltek Vision to help the company better execute its mission statement and get the work done better for our clients on time, on budget. Burnside is what's considered by some companies to be a large firm, others a medium-sized firm. We're kind of medium-sized in our industry, 340 full-time staff. That's all technical, administrative, and operational. We have 9 offices in Ontario, all Barrie South. We don't have anything in the north, although we're looking at potentially something up in the Sudbury, Thunder Bay area. And we also have offices in Winnipeg and Calgary. We have full-time presences in Barbados and Mozambique. As I said to a few people in this room, I have yet to visit the Barbados office. And I've been here almost 8 years at the company. So we tend to do a lot of landfill work, water and wastewater treatment work in those countries. So our challenges, right? We're a multidisciplinary consulting firm. We don't just do transport. We don't just do structures. We just don't do institutional building. We cover pretty well. If you can name it, we do it in some capacity. From wastewater treatment to environmental permitting to mine decommissioning and dewatering. We deal with GO Transit. We deal with federal municipal governments. We're very big in the lower tier municipality infrastructure projects. Okay, roads, bridges. So, I mean, we even design barns for Mennonites. I mean, we do everything, okay? So we have a challenge. We're multidisciplinary. And what we're finding is, as we bid for bigger projects, they want a firm that does this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, but they are all disparate to each other. An environmental scientist is not going to be doing structural engineering or electrical engineering. So we need a better way to share and to bring communication together, because we could have a structural engineer in Collingwood talking with a structural engineer in Guelph who has to link into a municipal class EA that's being done by somebody in Barrie. Well, that's a nasty prospect in terms of email, and you know email chains don't work, pieces get lost, one guy responds to all, the other guy only responds to one guy, you lose this whole piece of the email. We're dealing with some pretty complex things. We don't want pieces missing from the conversation. Travel time to have meetings, you know, that sort of thing. You want to share a drawing and put input, you got to get it out on the table, or everybody's got to open it separately and mark it up 3 different times. Again, rapid changes to communication and knowledge sharing. Again, this is what I'm talking about, sort of the multidisciplinary, multi-geography. Another example, our Calgary office does land development primarily. Well, our land development engineers, for the most part, 8/10 of the team are based in Mississauga and Pickering. That's kind of a hell of a road trip to have a meeting about a project kickoff. Again, the change in the way IT has changed. I mean, we were talking earlier about, you know, how IT is accelerating in terms of its importance and criticality to companies, and also the advent of social media. Social media has just exploded in the last 5-7 years, and it's influencing people coming into the business. And I'm a big proponent that you've got to build the company for the future, right? You've got to look at what you're getting out of the university systems, and you've got to say, okay, we need to adapt to some of their ways of working and some of their expectations, or we're going to try to put a round peg in a, you know, like a star-shaped hole. It's just not going to work. So part of it is evolving to accommodate the employee of the future, to build for the tomorrow, not the today. Some people are like, it's worked for that 20 years. What do we need social collaboration tools for? I can just pick up the phone and, you know, we got some guys in the company who have been with the company a long time, and our company's very what I call handshaky, in the sense that, you know, we like to get out in front of the customer. We like to press flash, because when you're dealing with Mono Township or ESSA Township, you do go to the council meetings. They know our senior engineers' names of wives, children, birthdays, and that's great. But we're also dealing with a lot of other customers who just want to get the job done. So it's not about internally facing and saying, okay, we're not interested in customer relationships anymore. It's about the concept of using this tool to make the customer experience with our firm better, so we can have more of those handshakes in the future, okay? And again, the corporate modernization to drive efficiency, provide industry-leading tools. Again, when I started with Burnside, they were always a company that were open to the idea of technological improvement, and the president, John Burnside, who's the son of the founder, he's been in the business consulting, management consultancy world. He gets this stuff. We're blessed to have a very good, very strong, smart, progressive IT team in our company. And so it was about going in there and looking at the systems and saying, wow, you know, Colin mentioned System 74B/2. We need to de-silo. And you're never going to get one single silo. It's almost impossible. But let's bring 15 silos and maybe have 2. And let's try to work that so a term I like to use called the informational pivot. Let's make sure if we have a piece of information housed here in this particular silo, you can still surface it in this silo and that silo. So you're pivoting everything. Rather than the old thing, I'm going to give you an example. Contracts, I'll talk about this in a bit. Okay, where's the contract? Well, there's a copy of contract at FileNet. I think Jim's got a copy in his office somewhere, but he can't find anything on his desk. I got a copy filed away in the official contract registry, and I think I got one on my C drive. You don't need to do that anymore. It's a waste of paper. It's a waste of time. And I've seen cases where you pull out the contracts and there's 4 of them and nobody knows which one's which. And it's problematic, because I don't know about you, but I tend to like to have 1 contract with my client per project, not 4. Especially if I'm ever having to go to litigation, which we never do in engineering. Never go to litigation. So that's kind of where we were. We were lost in that email, that hailstorm of, you know, of emails, and, you know, comments got made like, before I even turn on my computer, I know I'm staring at, you've got 50 messages today. We wanted to try to filter the noise. This is never going to get rid of email. Email is still critical, particularly if you're externally communicating. You know, it's always best face-to-face, phone, email, or forums, right? But still, it's a good tool to declutter. And it provides you with the ability to have a conversation in context, okay? You're not you know, forward, reply all, reply to John, Mike, and Bill, but didn't put Mary in there, and then by the time you get involved in the email chain, you're like, I got to phone somebody and talk to them because I can't make any sense out of this. Okay, so really efficiency, decluttering, simplification is one of the things I was really aiming for. Now, this went really fast. I think Colin would agree that it kind of tiptoed a little bit, and then we had a shareholder AGM coming up, and the president said, I really want to communicate to the company through this thing. And it was like, okay, down all tools, Dave. Your life is now consumed with this for the next 2 months. And we got going really quick, and I think one of the important things getting started was we got a lot of not just senior people, but influencers. And we're talking, some of these guys have only been with the company 3 or 4 years, but they're those guys, they're up and coming stars, people respect them. They've just got their engineering qualifications, but people know they're bright cookies, so you want them in the room to speak for the younger cadre of staff. And then you get some of the more established people in the company, some of the more senior people, even people getting close to that 5-year pipeline to retirement. We had about 36 of these based in the firm that we got into discovery sessions where Colin and his team came in, and did analysis of the business. Took a lot of time to understand how Burnside works, not just engineering consultancy, but the way Burnside works. If you bring 5 engineers from 5 different engineering firms in here, they'll all say the same thing. Our company's different. We all do structural engineering. Our company's different. They all feel they're different, yet they're all doing the exact same type of work. So you needed to understand the entrepreneurial nature of the firm, the fact it's a family-run firm, the fact that it is very much based on a set of values and practices that speak to the individual and not to the corporate betterment. We are, in some senses, a company that is willing to allow points to slide off our bottom line for the benefit of having happy employees that enjoy a great work-life balance. So that's part of the appreciation that Colin brought to the process. And then, there's the sort of down and dirty work, getting the system to work for us. And what we did was we spent a lot of time coming up with use case scenarios. What will work for you? What are the things that you're going to use this system for? So what I decided to do is, because a lot of, the comments are always, well, this is going to take a lot of work to get started, and I'm already working 80 hours a week, and I can't create communities for my people. So I did it, right? I went in and I looked at the org chart and said, okay, what are we going to need based on the use case scenarios? And I created about 111 communities before we went live. And I took the steps of going to people and saying, hey, what are the important websites that you guys need to use every day? Or what's the thing that you're working on here? And what little tweaks do you need? So for them, it was a 20-minute hit in their life. For me, it was like a 1-month trial by fire. But it really helped adoption. And we'll talk about this later, because when they opened the system, it was there. It wasn't like a blank page that they had to craft themselves. But what it did, it gave them the familiarity with the structure to allow them to then engage with it and learn how to use the system. Again, 1 month of hands-on training for each member of staff, so I did a lot of traveling in August instead of spending time at my cottage, which I should have done. But you have to have them there learning. Unless you're a huge, huge multinational, but even then I would say train trainers and get the trainers in a room with people on computers and let them play. Set up test environments and let them play. Even today, I have 3 communities called Sandbox 1, 2, and 3. And I said, these are no rules communities. Do what you want in them. We wipe them every week. We check them for best practice and worst practice things. Make notes. We wipe them every week. So if somebody's not too familiar with how to structure a wiki or how to do, they go in and they basically blow the thing up. I don't care. That saves them from blowing up a real community that people spent months building. But people are still using the system. Even people who've been in it for almost a year now, we've been live, are still using it to do it. So it's a continuous education thing, right? And people are teaching me, and I'm supposed to be the guy. Colin?
Just to clarify, you don't need a month of training to use it?
No.
I'm not Mike, so you might want to repeat it, but...
1 month of 3-hour hands-on training sessions per person. So it took 3 hours to go through the whole thing comprehensively and have them do exercises, okay? You want to edit that bit. So by August 2013, the thing was largely in full release, and we're now in the process of doing a bit of re-education, to help people who've kind of fallen off with being busy or not really having the time to re-engage them, so second wave adoption concepts. So that's kind of what we're doing there, okay? So it wasn't a really arduous task for the company, but you have to make resources available to get the thing up and running. If you allow it to be deployment by committee, there's got to be somebody driving it and a couple of people helping. And I find if the system's ready to go and to be used day one, it's a lot easier than saying, hey, okay, here's a blank book, now color some pictures. that tends to be people like, oh man, that's a lot of work, and I got engineering to do, and my kids got soccer, and then 1 week becomes a month, becomes a year, and nobody's used it, okay? So we're gonna go through some use case scenarios, and I actually have the live version up here. If it works, fingers crossed. So this is our company environment, okay? Just bear with me, because until I got here and actually got on the Wi-Fi, I was going to do this by the slideshow, but I'll do it through here. Okay. So use cases scenarios really fell into 4 main areas: staff communication, projects, because that's what we do. We're consultant engineers. We do projects. That's all we do. Knowledge transfer, okay? So technical knowledge, and the other use case scenario was what we called entities. And the discussion behind this was, say we want to set up a community that relates to the region of Peel, the city of Toronto. Our municipal engineers will approach that from a different lens than our development engineers. Okay, so our municipal engineers, that's a client, that's a relationship, that's business development opportunity, managing the client. Well, from the land development group, that's, business development opportunity, but they're the regulatory authority. So we kind of lumped anything that's not internal as an entity, and I'll show you some examples later. So one of the examples for staff communication is every office in our company has a community, okay? Has a place where they can go and talk about things relevant to their office. Hey, the staff barbecue for August is coming up. It's going to be on this date. We need volunteers to bring salads, and we also need 3 people to barbecue. It's an innocuous thing, but it's just a communication where people can then get involved in different examples. And one of the areas that gets used a lot is announcements about things, or conversation. Do we want organic waste bins in the lunchroom? We would like to recycle, and we'd like to do composting. They offer these, any objections, and people can have a discussion. The area that's worked out a lot, particularly in the sub-community, because every community for an office has sub-communities. One of them is a health and safety community that's related to issues in their office, and the other one's a social committee. And we're finding that the office communities are really geared towards the social, which is good, because social collaboration, that's a good thing. And what's working really well is people posting ideas about, hey, I'm really, really, really tired of doing the same social event every year. It's June, we go to the Jays game. Can we go to a Hamilton Tiger Cats game in August or whatever? That'd be different, because we're in Guelph, we're nearby. They're playing in Guelph like last year. So somebody in Guelph said, why don't we get tickets to go to the Ticats game? It's at the Varsity Stadium in Guelph. They're not going to be here more than a year. It'd be a good opportunity. And it got voted on, and it was unanimous. Like, everybody in the office went. I think we had, out of the 39 staff we had in the office, 32 went or something like that. And the social committee guy, Dave Wilkinson, who's also in the IT department, said it was nice to be able to not have to generate all the ideas, because you get jaded and you kind of get ideaed out. That's not my problem. I'm the corporate ideas generator. I throw 300 ideas on the wall, and a couple of them stick, and we go forward. But okay, barbecue's easy, Jays game's easy, we'll do charity hockey tournament. What he thought it was really great was it allowed all the staff to contribute to the ideas and agree on something that they do, okay? Which I thought was a really novel use of this, okay? The other thing, and this is a part of the ROI I'll talk about later, is the admin sub-community that we have in these office communities. The poor girls who do our admin are, they're angels, right? Like 4 o'clock on a Friday, this has got to be with the client by 5, a deadline. Okay, I'm going to stand over your shoulder while you type this text, and we're going to send it out because it's got to do it at 5. And it's atypical consulting stuff, right? Everything's last minute, everything's a panic. How these guys ever got through university, they all must have crammed for their exams, because nothing's ever done before the last minute. So what we found is by setting up this admin community, we kind of enforced a little bit more structure, saying, if you want Kathy, if you want Sandra, if you want Juanita, you've got to tell us. You've got to give us notification of when this project's coming in and when it's due. And what we found is because there was a formal place to do it, engineering and project managers were coming and saying, yeah, so I think I'm going to need somebody in 2 weeks to deal with this report. It's a really big report. Who can help me? Well, through this, you know, Juanita could say, yeah, I haven't got anything on, you know, Dave or Mike. I'll book some time for that block that you're talking about. And we started enforcing a first come, first serve. So, you know, Joe would run out of the woods at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, completely desperate for somebody, and be like, well, Joe, sorry, but everybody else is booking the admin staff through the system here. You're gonna have to wait. And it's amazing when Joe doesn't get something done, it cries up the hill, and his boss says, well, that's the way it works, right? The great thing about this wasn't designed by me, this wasn't designed by the president, this wasn't even designed by the two ladies who are the admin managers for the company. This was designed by an administrative clerical staff in Mississauga who came up with this idea. So, empowerment of staff. She owns this. This is now being spread out throughout the company as best practice. How good does she feel about her role and her value to the company? Okay. So a few other areas where we did staff communication is we needed something where we could communicate to everybody in the entire firm. So we created this, that always catches me even after a year. We need to create something where everybody could see corporate things. So one of the great moments during the meeting, Colin, that we initially had, if you remember, was John Burnside, and he saw the forum and the blog. And John's not a big social media guy. And he said, so if I use this, if I blog to all the staff, or just the shareholders, or just the executive team based on the community, I never have to send a broadcast email out ever again. And Colin and I kind of looked at each other, and Colin looked at John and said, yes. That was it. We had buy-in from the president of the company because he hates broadcast emails, right? It's almost like it's a distraction. He feels a lot of times like people don't read them, that people feel obligated to drop everything because John Burnside, the emails just hit your desk. When that's not the intent. The intent is, hey, here's a preview of our year-end results this year, or here's for the shareholders some interesting ideas we need to think about during the AGM. He wants you to consume it when it's good for you, but he wants everybody to engage with it. So he was really on board with this whole idea. And that's kind of where this idea came from, where we could go in and we could go to staff and say, you know, give us your ideas, tell people about things that are important to the company, wins. One of the things we're doing a lot more now is announcements about big project wins. We'd win a and for us, our size, $50,000 is not a bad size project. We win a $50,000 project in Newmarket. Who heard about it? The guy in Newmarket, the staff in Newmarket, maybe if the project manager boasted a little bit, and some people he worked for in other offices. Now what we're doing is we are spending more time consciously celebrating our success across the firm and giving visibility into the firm. And one of the areas, again, where there was a lot of buy-in at the start was the whole concept of our international group. They work in Barbados and Mozambique mostly at the present moment. We're heavily engaged there. Nobody in the company knows what they do. I know Bill's down in Barbados and he's doing some landfill thing, and I know Rui and his guys are over in Mozambique and something to do with clean water. Well, when you actually look at the context of the projects and you get involved in physically seeing what's in there, you realize these are phenomenal projects being executed under very difficult circumstances. I had a junior member of staff one time who just bought shares and came out and said, yeah, I don't understand. Why do we have an apartment building in Mozambique? Why do we have 4 trucks? Why do we hire I heard somebody say we hire bodyguards. Like, why are we doing all this stuff? Well, you know, as you hire in a firm, you get a bigger picture. Well, down at that side, he's just heard about all this stuff going on through the rumor mill. But when he saw the photographs that were posted in the community of the projects we're doing in Mozambique, these are full-size wastewater treatment facilities and distribution facilities. This isn't like a hand pump with a pipe to a hut. This is major cities in Mozambique. We're bringing clean water to millions of people. So that serves 2 purposes. It provides context as to what we're doing. It also provides pride and morale in the firm, that we're actually involved in very important global work. We're not just, you know, we're not the schmucks building barns in backwoods of Erin. We're actually doing good stuff for local people, great stuff internationally. So it's provided a lot of the ability, not just for the international group to communicate with each other and to coordinate and collaborate across geography, big geography, it's also given the company more insight to what we do as a firm. And I think that's something as you get bigger and you get multi-regional, you lose it. The newsletter doesn't really work. It's kind of a dead art, right? People, the newsletter, I don't have 3 hours to read the newsletter, click, deleted. This is like newsletter in real time. Hey, we won this job, and 3 days later, hey, congratulations to Mark, their team won this job, and here's some photographs from site, and here's the kickoff meeting with the Prime Minister of Barbados on this landfill recovery system we're designing for them. So we're playing with some big players, right? Bill Yoakum, our senior engineer in Barbados, sits with the government and discusses projects with the government of Barbados. Now, Barbados isn't the United States, but for a firm of 350 people, I look at that and think, we're hitting way above our weight in the Caribbean. That's awesome. We need to multiply these successes based on this. And I think that's the key thing is the institutional knowledge, whether it's news, social events, actual technical knowledge. That is a huge benefit for us in the company. People are sharing, and I think a lot of companies don't share, which is funny because in the modern age of technology and everything else, it's easy to share. I can go on Twitter or Instagram or Pinterest and share whatever I want, but in firms, a lot of firms don't do it very well. So this is one of those things we tried to do. I mean, and it's even things like permits to take water. Just to let you know, the government's changed the rules. The reason it's in there is because this can apply to 4 different disciplines in 7 different offices, so it made sense to go there. And what we do is we just link that to various wikis or blogs in other communities where it's relevant, so it spreads the knowledge. So that's kind of where we get with corporate communication, okay? The other thing that we looked at, and I'll just show you, and this is a really great success story, and it comes with ROI attached to it as well. And I'll discuss ROI later. I guess it's easier to look at my screen than there, wouldn't it? We've seen an explosion in the use of communities for projects. And it seems logical, it seems obvious. We're a project-based firm. Projects by their nature are collaborative endeavors. We probably do 2,000 projects a year. And with the exception of the structural guys who do these really storefront, quick hit, farmer needs a beam schedule for his building, $500 cash, takes 10 minutes to do. We have more than one person working on every project. And even the structural projects are reviewed by a senior engineer, but designed by a junior engineer. So collaboration is part of our business. So it was kind of funny that for a while people were like, yeah, how am I going to use that to manage my, I don't. And you'd go to them and say, think about it. You have a process. Every project has a process. You beginning, middle, end, right? Do the work, build the work, collect the work. Okay, yeah. Well, activity streams, you can build an activity that suits your project. You can build templates that suit your project. Oh, okay, yeah. You can put web links to like the Region of Peel's sewer main sizing documents by web link. Okay, yeah. I get that. You can have conversations and one of your junior engineers can ask a question to the entire project team and get answers from the senior guys without having to go to them while they're in a meeting or wait for them or do something, and I could have got this done, but Phil was in a meeting all day and Phil's the guy. Well, maybe Phil's not the guy, and I'll show you some examples of sometimes answers aren't always come from the place you want them to or where they have to come from. So as time went by, and in particular the gentleman who's the manager of our bridge group, he kind of clicked in. I'm not saying he dove in, but he saw the potential and he made the commitment to invest the time, okay? So I'll give you an example. Now some of these are, let's see if I can find one here. His big thing was activities. He went and saw, activities are a good idea. We'll do that. So what we found is, and I'm going to probably pick the worst example because that's just the way things work. No, okay. So he went home on a weekend and he designed this thing. And what it is it's a progress chart of every task and every function that you do on a bridge project. From staring at the dip in the road, right, to commissioning and cutting the ribbon. And what he did is he created this master template. And it's huge. I mean, it's massive. If you expanded all the sections, you go myopic. But what he did is he took 2 days and he went through and he said, okay, what do I do? Data survey collection. I've got all these things I got to do, right? These are all things I got to do. It's really easy to take out so if you're just doing a bridge inspection, You do the first couple of things, you nuke all the rest. If you're doing a full bridge design but you didn't do the inspection, you nuke the first section, you keep the rest. It's very easy. It took him, he figures, 20 hours. And he came to me and he said, Dave, I blew an entire weekend on this. My wife is not happy. And I said, oh, stick with it, right? Let's see what it does. This guy is like the activity stream ninja in our company. He knows how to put things like phones next to that. I didn't know you could put a phone next to a conference call thing. I mean, it's little things, but still, you know, he took the time to learn. But what he's told me is, this is pretty transformational, because the process he used before was he had a Gantt chart for every single Excel Gantt chart for every single project he was running. Could be 10, could be 15, could be 20. And every week he'd pull the Gantt chart out and he'd go along to the handwritten note next to, you know, prepare and issue requests for soils and say, oh, Matt Brooks. No, Matt Brooks isn't there. Oh, Matt Brooks has responded 2 days later because he was off sick, but we didn't know. Okay, that's all right, okay, check, or whatever. You know what he tells his guys now? It's there, you do it, you tell me when you've done it. I don't want to have to chase your butt to find out when you're doing your work. I've empowered you to do this, do it, tell me when it's done. If we have a problem, let's have a conversation about it. But you can have the conversations in here as well. You can say, hey, didn't make the site today, Steve, it was snowing. A big problem for our firm this year. You can even attach things like, I need you to go and do a site investigation. Here's the site plans from the project, attach. If you got a tablet, you're laughing. We got FileNet, it's web enabled. You click it, there's the site plan. You're not walking around with this thing like this, bumping into stuff, falling down holes. And what he realized is this saved him hours every week. Hours he uses to chase new business, to charge the projects, and to maintain relationships with clients. That's the holy grail for us right there. If you can get a guy stop doing administrative stuff, right? Because they're very sheepish about charging this to the client, even though technically they should. If you can get them to do stuff like this, that's the holy grail for us. That's more money. Our business is based on charging hours and taking a very small profit margin off those hours. So our guys that aren't 100% utilized, that aren't 90% utilized, 80, this guy's an expensive guy. He's a senior technical staffer. He gets paid a lot of money. And if he's spending all his time chasing spreadsheets. But what it's also done, it's helped the education process of these guys, Matt, Trevor Littlejohns. It's helped them understand project process. It's helped them and enabled them with tools to be better project managers and to get things done. And it's pushed a whole level of accountability towards the staff. So now they're responsible. It's not like, okay, because you know, sometimes if you don't push human beings, they tend to wait till they're pushed. That happens a lot. We live in a very passive-aggressive society, unfortunately, and a lot of times people, especially early in their career, they're not kind of sure where they should be and what they're doing. Do it. If you have questions, ask the group. Do it. Okay, it's done, and that's a big deal for us. And I think later in the thing, I think he probably adds another $19,000 a year in billable time to the company just by using this. That's one person. That's a microcosm of what the system can do if you use it properly in terms of an actual dollar return on investment. Does he charge every one of those hours? Probably not, but at least it's billed as revenue, okay? So the other thing that projects allow you to do, the project means allow us to do, is to actually provide tools to staff. We do a lot of design calculation, and it was always be, I have a design calculator. Well, I have a design calculator. I have a design calculator. Okay, which one actually gives you the right calculations? Because these are all web-based things, you know, everything on the internet's true and right, is it not? And what you find is when you're designing sewer mains, this makes a big difference to whether the thing's gonna blow up or not perform. So what it did is it allowed managers of projects, managers of groups to put those tools in place in the community. It's the one point of truth. That's the design calculator for designing sewer grade entrances. Use that, don't use anything else. Somebody uses something else, well, that's an accountability issue. But it focused people on what was the best tool. And it's handy because if you're in the project and you need it, you just click it and it takes you to the website and you do it, or you need a piece of information, you click it. You need to know the legislation around sewer gate controls or whatever it is. The wiki's there because we've cut and pasted it from the government website. Very specific to our industry, but can be adopted across numerous industries in terms of the use of that. if you're doing projects, or even if you're just collaborating in a team environment on something as innocuous as organizing a golf tournament. The administrator who's in charge of that, she uses this now, sets tasks, has deadlines, doesn't chase people, uses that. I was the swag guy this year. I was in charge of, appropriating corporate swag for the golf tournament. And so, I kind of got my marching orders, right? And the great thing I love about this, and the thing I really like about, don't get me wrong, when I started this process 2 years ago, I was the guy who said, Twitter, I don't care what Kim Kardashian is doing today. And I started getting involved and realized actually it's a great tool to learn things and to communicate. Is the administrator's been with the company 5 years, is 28 years old or whatever, is given marching orders to the VP to do something. So it requires a little bit of humility. I'm going to get, that's the thing about connections. It's no longer, and I'll mention this later, it's no longer boss, signal processor, doer. It's, and these guys get kept informed. And it goes both ways. So you get a lot more honesty, a lot more empathy, and a lot more humility in the way you do things. Because I get orders from junior staff now. Hey, I need this done by this date. I'm not an egomaniac. It needs to be done. It benefits the company. I will call people for swag for the golf tournament. All right? And funny enough, I put it down to my own my own passionate ability to generate swag, but we set a record for the amount of money we got out of our swag table this year. So, it works. It works. So for us, the project environment is extremely important, and it's getting used a lot more. It really did start with the bridge guys. They were kind of like the pioneers. And now suddenly the bridge guy has talked to the land development guys and said, yeah, I use this for this thing. And it's like, my projects last maybe a year. Yours are like multi-million-dollar projects that last like 4, 5, 10 years sometimes. You're designing subdivisions. You're designing shopping malls. You want to see this? And you show them, and even I've shown them. And you go to the people and you show them, like, okay, I get it, right? I get it. And once you start spreading it, it gets used. And we're finding now, you'll see a lot of communities have been created in this system. A lot of them, more than half of them, are now project-based communities. So we'll have a lot of communities in our company, but it's good because it's getting people to use the system. It's getting people engaged, and it's improving a lot of things. Contract compliance was always something we had a problem with, right? So one of the things I'm going to surprise people with in the future, say, okay, copy the signed contract into FileNet. I want a link into your project community so I can go and make sure it's done. So I can audit without auditing. Plus the fact is if I'm in Connects, I can see the contract. I don't have to go to FileNet and go looking through FileNet for it unless I'm in FileNet. And again, I refer back to that concept of the informational pivot that I try to use in a lot of the applications that we produce. So the other area that we will talk about is where we're doing things like technical stuff. So I'll bring up my my champions here. So you'll see these three communities. So we started off with a structural community. So when I started the system, I basically went in and I designed one for every technical group. The other two are self-created spin-offs of structural done by people who got into the system and said, I could really use that for building regulations and permit work. I could really use it for Revit Structural, which is a computer application they use to do structural designs in 3D. But the structural group are like, they're all over this thing. It's unbelievable how much they're using this. So bookmarks, important bookmarks, CSA standards for subscribing and getting updates online, ground motion parameters, and this is an example. So whenever they design a building, they got to design it for ground motion, earthquakes, seismic events. Yeah, you really don't want to use the wrong calculator that may have been developed by some dude in Nevada where they never get ground seismic events like they do in BC, where we're designing stuff like, sports domes. You want one that's got stuff that can adapt to the region. It's the same thing. Building regulations are different in Arizona for reasons they're different in Ontario because of the climate and the seismic activity. So this is an area where they consolidated to the one model. The group manager said that's the model that works. It wasn't provided by him. One of his engineers said, I found this one, and it allows you to select region. It allows you to select the history periods that you're looking at. So there's a lot of information here that's at their fingertips. They're talking about really exciting stuff, guys, like concrete exposed to ammonium nitrate. I have no idea what that is, but apparently it's important to the structural guys. But they're having conversations about this. They're having dozens. I mean, if I click view all, it goes on for pages. How climatic data relates to farm buildings. It's innocuous stuff, but for them, this is critical. This is the difference between a satisfied, fully paid customer and a lawsuit. So I don't want to undersell what these little things mean. They blog a lot, right? You know, different issues that are related to them, news items that are worthy of the group, and they do a lot of wiki work. So they put a lot of wikis in. I always said people, because you know, when you go in front of the training and you start to give the verbal bit of the training, you know, this is what it is and here's the background, you'll get the group, right? And they tend to be more the newer employees and the younger intermediates to say, yeah, okay, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, you know, LinkedIn. I get it. Can I go back to work now? You get the middle group, kind of like people my age, so I'm like, okay, yeah. And then you get a layer that's got people from my group and older who are like, okie dokie. And then you'll get the one in the room, the senior guy in the room, that has the respect of all the other senior guys in the room that goes, oh yeah, I get that. So if you do this, and they're all like, oh. But because I'm not an engineer and I explain it, they don't get it, right? But the minute an engineer says, yeah, I understand what Dave's saying, he does this, and okay, good. So one of the things is I always described the wiki, because people have problems with this. That's why I was mentioning this thing about adoption, is the terminology freaks people out, particularly if they're not in social media. What's a wiki? What was a wiki? My kid was on a wiki once, and well, it's encyclopedic knowledge. What's a blog? A blog's a news item. It has a lifespan. And what's a status update? A status update is a tweet. I'm going to be out of the office next week on Tuesday at an event in Toronto, right? As a sidebar, there's a great little adoption piece that people have been using in our firm. So in the Burnside staff, a lot of the managers will go and put status updates, and I do it all the time, habitually saying, please note, Tuesday, 24th of June, I am at the Strathcona Hotel in Toronto, you know, telling everybody how clever I am. If you have any issues, please contact blah, blah, blah. How many people have been in a situation where there's a time critical thing or a technically critical thing, and you email the guy, and the email comes up, please note, I will be on vacation for the next 3 weeks, you never knew about it. In a firm of 350 people, this happens all the time. So junior engineer, the engineerling as I call him, he sat there, has no idea what to do. Well, using that status update, he knows his boss is going to be on holiday. He needs to get that conversation happened, or he needs to get hold of somebody else by looking at profiles or looking at conversations in FileNet or in Connects. He needs to know who to go to while the boss is away. So it's preemptive notification of being away from the office. And it's something that's worked out quite well, actually. But like I said, this is a technical group, and they're using this thing all the time. And what we found is, again, you need those champions that kind of spread the gospel and sing their own success songs to get other people on board. And this is the area probably we've had some of the most widespread engagement, because people realize that the technical data they manage and the technical stuff they manage is key critical to the outcome of the project. So this knowledge warehouse is a lot easier to use than searching for an individual document that's housed in FileNet, where we have 1.8 million documents. It's still filed in FileNet, but it's here at a click of a button, okay? And sort of the last thing that we did is the concept of the, sorry, I did it again. The concept of the entity. So external facing kind of things. Although the client right now in our licensing environment can't see these communities, they're focused on things like the region appeal. Okay? So this allows us to go in and have discussions about, you know, what is important to the client. We have sub-communities that are restricted for business development, because we don't want everybody that deals with the region appeal knowing our strategy for the region appeal, particularly if they decide to move to another company. But it allows them to discuss items, and this is probably not the best one because it's pretty new, to discuss items related to the client. Okay, has everybody seen that this is that this RFP's come out? How are we going to get on board with the RFP? Who do we need? Let's get, and then boom, it starts to move into a project/proposal community. One group that's done this is a regionally based group called the Public Sector's Berrien Area. And they have entity communities for their clients. And you know what they do? And this is a thing they've done very well is they go and say, we bid on this bridge job in Simcoe County, County Road 90. We didn't get the job. Let's have a discussion about why we didn't get the job in here. So it becomes institutional knowledge. Well, they said our technical score was good, but we were kind of high on price. Or they said our price was good, but we really didn't have the great, what we call in the industry, the gray hair power, knowledge power, the senior guy to really manage this project at the level of complexity that it exists. So they're using it for forensic analysis of where they're successful and not successful with clients as well. And that's something that we've done informally, but you can't grab it. You can't say, okay, well, hold on a second. This all fall into the category of too high priced. We now have to think about our pricing or disengaging from that client or that business model because it's not winning us any work. Or maybe we are too high priced and we need to tell everybody to lower their salaries so we can lower the charge out rates, which never happens at all. So those are the entities. And one of the other things that, that we've seen it used for, and I purported this use, but it's been very recent, we do a lot of locates work in our business. So we have locates firms. So we now have a community which is under development right now for locates companies. And every locates company is a sub-community because different locates, different regions, different companies. It has their pricing models, it has their website bookmarks. One company even has an online purchase order where you go and say, I need this locate done at this address by this date, and they will email you back. Once we get to the point where we're able to externalize that, we're going to allow them to interact with the system, to tell us, we've done this, or it's scheduled for Tuesday, right in the system. We have another mechanical engineering group, and they have an entity for their suppliers, because they do, when you're building an HVAC system, you kind of know the parts cost and the controls. Johnson Controls, the tin tappers who bend the tin. They have access to the catalogs of those people through bookmarks and everything. So they're no longer fingering through bookmarks. And what we've done is we've actually eliminated huge libraries of vendor catalogs, and it's a lot quicker to use the online tool to find a product. And we have bookmarks, popular SKU numbers for certain things we order a lot of. We have those as important bookmarks. So you can go straight to the page in that catalog if it's online, and you can fill out the order form. So that's something that we're starting to see getting used right now. A year on, and it's still evolving. Okay. There's also a couple of things we do that I think are kind of cool. I'll take credit for introducing the idea of the company. I'm not going to take credit for the actual idea. It came from a firm out in California that I actually heard a presentation about maintaining culture while growing at the Connects conference in Orlando. And it was about the idea is, as companies grow, it's harder and harder to maintain culture. How do you maintain culture? How do you maintain efficiency? Well, this one firm utilized Connects to onboard staff, to basically put the company's culture in the heads of people, straight from the mouths of the leaders of the company, and the legislation that's required and the forms required, not all the good stuff you fill in for the first week that you're at a new firm. They kind of use Connects, and we're developing this site, so it's not completely done yet. So the idea is this. I don't know, the IBMers in the room might disagree with the licensing rules on this, but I'm taking a chance here. We consider an employee to be an employee the minute they've signed off on their offer letter and we've received the offer letter, they are assigned an employee number. So we decided, guess what? They're going to get access to our system because they're now officially an employee, they're just not here yet. And usually 2 to 3 weeks before they come. Some senior guys a month. So we kind of thought, using this idea that I'd pilfered from this guy who's a lot smarter than I am out in California, why don't we open up a community and provide access to these guys for this community, right? Because with IT we can set parameters of who can see what. We'll put in here everything they need to know about the firm. Our history, our culture, video message from the president, video message from Bob Burnside, the founder. We're developing video training of how to do your timesheet, how to do expenses. The video from the owner, we're going to put the video in. It's about the values and practices of the company. Where have we come from? Why are we relevant? What are our values? What are our practices? And what does the firm mean? What's the message? It's very hard to get that impact, and it sounds weird because you're interacting with a computer, But it's very hard to get that impact in a growing firm when your buddy's been at the company 2 years and he's telling you all about values and practices. It doesn't work. If you're a fast growing firm, and at one point, I wish we'd had this 4 years ago when we were growing by 20% net a year, suddenly the values and practices is a piece of paper that's pinned to your cubicle wall. You don't read it, you don't know it, right? But if you hear the owner of the firm talking in a video, and the owner of the firm, he doesn't want to be at every single new staff that comes on board giving them the spiel. But if he hears it from his mouth, it's a lot more impactful. But there's all sorts of things that help us organize as well. The onboarding checklist. Now some of this stuff is in process, so bear with me here. What to do. Hiring manager, designate a buddy. This will change once we videoize our training. We won't need, the best one is we got guys in the company who are buddies to people who hate filling in their timesheets, constantly make mistakes on their expenses. I don't use the FileNet system. Not really sure I want those guys to be laying the seeds of good behavior, right, with our new staff. I want them to learn from experts who say, this is how you fill in your timesheet, this is how you do your expenses. This is the reason why FileNet's important. The buddies never explain FileNet's important because it's our legal repository of record. They say, yeah, operations gave us this is kind of cool, but sometimes when I'm off site, I just keep stuff on a C drive. And the C drive crashes and we lose like critical, technical data that may be related 10 years to a bridge falling down. So it gives all sorts of processes. It clearly states what roles are, what your duties are for a new staff member. It provides background to the staff in terms of the company. So what happens? We're even talking about opening this up. Carl Lankinen, our structural manager, or Steve Reed, our structural manager, hire a junior structural engineer. Why don't we give them access to the structural community? Why don't we give them access to their coworkers, their peers, and their managers? Give them access to the knowledge databases that reside in the technical community. They can be reading all this stuff. They can understand. Burnside's process for QA/QC for structural is ABC. So you're thinking, yeah, but what is it? They can do that. They hit the door and they know it. They've filled in the T4 forms. They've done their health and safety training. They know how to fill their timesheet in. You've got an extra week to 2 weeks of work out of these people right off the bat. And I asked this, all new staff I asked when I was sort of mulling this idea, what's the thing you love about working for Burnside? And the junior staff would always say the same thing. Oh, I love work and having a paycheck, and I bought a sweet TV on the weekend, because none of them are saving for retirement right now. But then you say, well, what did you hate? Like, honestly, what did you dislike? I hated all the forms. I felt like I was floundering for 2 weeks. All I was doing was wandering around glad-handing people. With this, they know that there's a barbecue coming up the week they start. They know we're going to have a celebratory barbecue for them when they come. They know the branch manager of Guelph is Jackie K. They know Carl Lankinen is a senior structural engineer. They know about the effects of whatever it is on concrete. The thing about engineers that's important with this is they don't know what they don't know sometimes coming out of school, because they come out of school, and I was surprised because engineering, there's a formula, right? When engineers come out of school, the reason why they don't get their stamp for 4 years is because there's a lot of stuff they don't know. And it's practical stuff, how to deal with clients, how to deal with projects. So this gives them a window before they even come in the door. So they've got acclimatization, acclimation, right before they come through the door. So I think this is one of the things we're looking and hoping for that's going to be a real big win for us in terms of our use case scenarios. And getting our new staff and even our existing staff, getting them more on board. We have actually, in a kind of a twist, the HR manager now has a site for millennials. Because we're being told millennials are different, and they have a very different worldview, but they've been brought up with this. I now think, when I look at my 6-year-old son, I'm where my dad was when I was like 12 and the VCR first came out, and it was like, my dad was like, can you please get that 0000, stop blinking on that clock? And I go doo, 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 doo. My dad would be like, how'd you do that? My 6-year-old comes home with stuff now from school, I'm like, huh? And the funniest part is I'm the systems guy, so that probably isn't very, confidence inducing, but it's kind of like, you have to, as I said before, you have to build the company for the future. And if you don't take on these neat things that people are doing now in society, like social media, it's an impressive thing, because I learned stuff about my job from people I've never physically met before in my life. I've learned more about social collaboration in the post sort of implementation world from people like, Sandy, Mark Feidelman, guys like that, Jacob Cohen in Israel. I have conversations with a guy in Israel about social collaboration. I mean, how cool. They direct me to stuff I'd never find on the internet. It works internally as well. Do you want to know what's going on in Mozambique? You're kind of involved in a project that has a structural element and you think the structural subcontractor might be out to lunch. Throw the idea out to the structural group. They can answer the question for you. So there's a lot of things to be found in the system, and I'll explain a specific example of efficiency in terms of this in a minute. I'm just going to go back to the presentation. If anybody have any questions about our use case scenarios, like I said, they were generated out of several hours of talking and one very late night in our Mississauga office between pizza on how to get people engaged. So I'm just going to forward through this. That's the new ideas side. Okay, so where are we today? You know, we're 10 months, 11 months in. We have 231 active communities with 169 different owners. So we have a lot of people with ownership of a community. They're managing that community, they're managing content, they're moderating the communities. Like I said, I set out about 100 of these beforehand, and there's probably about 20 more sort of technical sidebar ones like the Revit structure one you saw. What we're seeing is creation notifications for new communities are coming in. It's mostly all project related or event related stuff. We got one for the World Cup, right? We did one for the World Cup so we could have a World Cup charity pool. I'm sucking big time. I was worried today that I was coming today and England are playing at noon, so I'm going to miss that game. But then I saw the way they played the last two games and they've taken care of that problem for me because they're not going anywhere, so that's good. But we had one where we do hockey pools. Every office had a hockey pool on a spreadsheet. Now we have a corporate hockey pool for the playoffs just on here. Ironically, the only community I had to decline comments for moderation in was the hockey playoff pool. I find that no matter what medium they interact, Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto fans, well, Ottawa and Montreal fans hate Toronto fans passionately, and the Toronto fans hate them back passionately. And some of the conversations were amusing, but not appropriate for child consumption. So we have 15,000 entries, so line items, to-dos, and 540 activity streams in a year. This is accelerating every day. I'll come back in a year and I'll bet you that'll be up to probably 60,000 line items, okay? I mean, remember, we do 2,000 projects a year. Of that, probably 750 are of the duration that would benefit from this. Some of them are literally like, it would take longer to create the activity stream than it would to do the project. We have 250 currently active published blogs that haven't been archived. Okay, bookmarks are used the bookmarks in the system, so the links to websites have been used 334 times in the last 30 days. So that means on average, one person is using a bookmark every day. I want to see that number go up, but it will go up with time as we see more development. We have 205 published wikis, 805 pages in those wikis. So they're not all just like one sentence with a link. They actually have structure. 37,424 views. That means 100 times every person in the company has viewed a wiki on average. I think it's pretty good. For a year, that means once every 3 days or so, somebody's viewing a wiki, which is not bad, because wikis are those things you go to when you need them. They're not a bookmark, right? They're not the forum, they're not that daily hit thing, okay? So I think, generally, for a firm our size, engineering, we're doing pretty good. Could we do better? Yeah, for sure, but we're getting there. So some of the benefits we've seen with engagement and adoption: better knowledge sharing within and across groups. I've shown you that with the technical group pages. The improved ability to update staff and allow them to reference back if required. You know, it's not, please note, the regulations for permits to take water have changed. Here's the link, and somebody goes delete, right? When I was doing my kind of knowledge or my learning around how the company could use this, common comment I got is, I'm sick and tired of providing web links for calculators to my staff. They always go in, they get the link, they don't bookmark it, they delete the email, and then it's like, hey Carl, remember that thing you sent me last month? I deleted it again for the 4th time. Now they don't have to worry about it. So it allows people to reference back. It has a history to it. The conversations have got history. If you ever want to see what we talked about that bridge in Melanchthon, well, you can go back to the conversation. You can read it, you can reread it, you can search by word. It's a lot easier than an email. I mean, emails are a disaster to do. They're great for communicating points like, hey John, can you meet Tuesday? send you an invite. It's kind of different when you're having forums in Connects allow you to have a conversation, a proper conversation with multi-threaded, multi-tiered instances. One vice president said to me, he goes, the thing I like about the forum is, it's in my area. I look at something and say, that doesn't seem right. I can jump into that piece of the conversation. I don't have to go through the email chain and read from the bottom all the way to the top and hope I wasn't excluded on a reply. And when we do things like, expert witness, and when we're reviewing projects or we're providing technical advice, that's a good thing to have, to be able to come back to that complete conversation, okay? Again, I talked about the flat communication across the firm. No more top-down, bottom-up signal processing. Yeah, my staff are disgruntled about this, but I'll be you-know-what if I'm going to tell the vice president. And so, okay, and what's the problem, Steve? Well, these guys think that maybe, we should have Remembrance Day off, and we'll go to the cenotaph. But really, what the message is we're fed up. We want another week's holiday, right? Now, what we're finding is the president sends something out. It's amazing. The president sends out an announcement. 340 likes the next day. So there is an element to the social media side of this that people can interpret as, I liked that comment because it's from the president. That's human nature. Everybody tries to ingratiate themselves to somebody at some time. But I think what it is there's none of that signal anymore. If the president wants to send a message, he sends the message to everybody. Everybody's equal within the message. If he wants to send a different message for shareholders, because non-shareholders shouldn't be knowing this stuff, he sends it to that community. Nobody sees it because it's restricted. Only shareholders or members. But it filters the noise. There's so much of this, and I see it. I'm in a senior executive position at the firm. I send down some sort of edict or rule about this, and you can't charge 14 beers on your expenses at a golf tournament anymore. 14, 10, 7. We'll leave it up to you. Right? There's none of that anymore. It's straight communication. Everybody feels involved and everybody feels like they're being engaged. Emails, again, it's very easy for John Burnside to send an email and people go, year-end results, I'll get told at the meeting in February. It's too bloody late. The end of the year's come. So send this and the people can consume it in their own time, when they have the time, at home, while they're on the road. A lot of staff have commented, this is awesome because it's web-based. They can be on the road, on their way to some place in the middle of nowhere in northern Canada. If they've got internet access, they can keep up to date with what's going on. One guy's particularly a soccer freak. This friend of ours, a guy I work with from Portugal, who's right now up in, is it Kirkland Lake? And he's blessed because the hotel in Kirkland has Wi-Fi. But he's able to keep up with the soccer pool because he's also winning it, which doesn't really sit well with me. So I think the thing is it allows people to keep up to date, right? Not have to necessarily be in the office to do things. We live in an increasingly mobile world, and I think this mobility piece of this is awesome. And we've got the field services guys all over us about, well, our guys are in that site 4 months in a row. We got to get them tablets, and we got to download, and we got to connect, we got to have a community for this stuff. I'm like, okay. So I'm at the point now where Connects for our firm is gaining success and momentum, and the lights are going on in people's heads, and it's because they're seeing the benefit from other users, and they're now adopting and formulating their own strategies. So I'm kind of getting, this wave of requests for different things, and can we do this? And it's really encouraging. It is encouraging. There's still some people that you have to kind of nudge with your foot a little bit to use it. Some of the old guard who are a little bit wary about it. And again, time saved on repeated tasks. Activity templates, pulling out the spreadsheet and the Gantt chart. That's, for us, time saved is time billed, is time, money earned is profit in the bank if the client pays. And leverage the institutional knowledge at all levels. This is the piece here on adoption. A PM saves 2 hours a week based on his activity management, which can be charged to a project. So this is the example of the bridge guy, right? $14,000 in extra billable revenue based on a charge out rate of 140, which is probably median for a guy of that seniority. So here's something that I think, and it's hard to analyze in real time without talking to people, and saying, how much time do you think this saves you in a year or a week? But if every billable person on staff, that's billable, that's not overhead staff, save a half an hour based on good communication, efficient use of activity templates and all that other stuff, that's our ROI in terms of increased chargeable revenue per year. That's way more than we paid for this thing. That's in a year. So even if it's modest or mediocre engagement, you're paying back on the system. But this isn't the only benefit. If anybody's going to this just for that, then they're making a mistake. I think one of the big drivers has always been for me is, are people happier in their work? Are they getting work done better? Are our clients happier? Because that ends up being that. Do our staff feel more engaged? Do they feel like they're contributing and they're valued? Are they able to communicate to the higher levels of the firm and feel that they're actually putting their ideas forward and not having to go through the, that's a good idea, Timmy. Hey, I had a great idea, John. You know, suddenly the idea of Timmy's is now my idea. There's a lot of that. They're able to actually feel like they're swinging above or hitting above their weight in terms of their influence in the company. And for staff, particularly as you're building culture and moving, and I talk a lot about younger staff, but as you're evolving the company to protect it to the future and grow it in the future, I think the soft ROI, as I call it, the people ROI, is as important as the dollar ROI. But yeah, we're a business. We want to make money, return value to shareholders. So this number is important. Okay, is that the exact number? No, but that's a number that I think is reasonable to expect, right? Based on what I'm seeing, I think that number is reasonable. So, you know, just extrapolate. If it saved 2 hours for every technical person in the firm, you're into the big dollar. For us at 40 million a year in revenue, that's not a drop in the bucket, right? So that's more bonus, more investment in training, more connects. You know, if we're making more profit, I have more leniency to look at more solutions that make that number bigger. Okay, so that's kind of where the ROI is in our firm. And I was saying before, and I misplaced my slides, leverage institutional knowledge, because we've discovered that the answers to questions can come from the unlikeliest of places. And I'm going to use a really twee example, but I've seen multiple examples of this. Jeff Langlois, senior guy. He's the chairman of the board right now. He gets his new iPhone. We moved to iPhones. Well, there's an app. Because there's an app for that, right? There's an app for everything. Connects works on the app. But you got to get it set up to the server and the account and everything else. So IT, we're gonna, when we switched over, because it kind of came contiguous with this, the iPhones, what we'll do is we'll get everybody set up on the apps. Well, Jeff kind of jumped the ship because Jeff had an iPhone already. And he wanted to get on this and play with it because he's keen. He's the chairman. He's leading by example. He's modeling the way, as we say at Burnside. Writes a thing, what are the settings for the iPhone app? He didn't get the answer from IT. He didn't get the answer from me. He didn't get it from Colin. He got it from a junior CAD designer named Trevor Thompson in Guelph, who, like 9 or 10 minutes after this was posted, wrote back and said, here's the settings. The name of the server, the nickname of the server address, the passwords, everything, bang. Jeff says, that worked a trick. I see that, I click that and say, okay, that is an answered question in the system. Then communication goes out. When you get your iPhone, go to this web address, this URL link, and set your own phone up. IT have just saved themselves, I don't know how many hours. 225 devices all rolling out in the space of 3 weeks. It's like a full-time job. Now, is that ROI? Well, technical staff are spending 5 minutes doing this. Spending 5 minutes. You're not having one guy chained to a desk for a week doing this in IT. So he gets that laptop fixed quicker. He gets that new laptop ordered faster. He fixes the licensing issue with CAD faster. Well, at the end of the day, that trickle down is more billable hours, more ROI, more revenue. And it's a great customer service tool because people can self-actuate, right? And that's a key thing. Self-actuation is my new buzzword because I love it. I love the idea that people can come in, the onboarding community, this sort of stuff. It's minor, it's tiny, but when you aggregate it across the firm and everybody, self-actuation is the greatest thing a company can do to its staff to build morale, to build engagement, to build a sense of self-worth, and to drive efficiency. If people are self-actuated, they're not wasting time asking questions. I don't need Buddy talking to new staff and showing them for an hour how to fill in their timesheet wrong, when this guy can do it either after he arrives, when we expect him not to be billable anyways, or before he arrives so he's billable when he arrives. That guy's doing technical work, he's charging. Again, soft ROI, it drips to the bottom line eventually over time. So, you know, like I said, we've had numerous examples where guys come in and said, yeah, the calculation for that is x plus y to the third minus blah, blah, sigma sign, blah. And we've had intermediate engineer come back and say, no. Under the new regulations, you have to change the sigma to a pi and blah, 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 blah. And the bosses looked at it and said, you know what? Little Timmy's right. Click, answered question. Little Timmy's like, scored. It's there, people can see it. Human beings love that. They love to be given kudos for something. You're not saying, well done, Timmy, tap on the head. But what you're doing is in public, in your group, you're adding worth to his knowledge base. You're saying, this kid, 26 out of school, he answered the question. He knows what he's talking about. Who are they going to go to for the answer to that question next time? Timmy. So he's become an important, or little Jane. They've become important parts of the team just by answering a question because it's visual. People can see it. Some of our less socially aware staff have noticed it's visual. Everybody sees it. There's always a danger that people are going to say stupid things, make stupid comments, crack jokes, which I don't like written jokes because you can't get context or body language. So, you know, there's some moderation involved there, and people learn a hard lesson. Don't gripe in public about something that maybe you should gripe to your boss in person about. You know, don't write to the HR in the forum saying, hey, have you got a brochure on addiction counseling? Yeah, it's a phone call conversation thing. So there's dangers and there's benefits, but believe me, I've seen this thing for a year now, and I think, is it wholesale change the company? Not yet, but we're getting there. And is adoption perfect? No, but we're getting there. And I think at any firm, if you ever think you're going to get 100% engagement, you're out to lunch. I've worked for some pretty monolithic firms where it's like, you do this or you will be killed, and they will come up and like take your career away from you and make you go somewhere else. And people still don't follow things, right? That's the human nature. You get 350 people, you're going to have a good cross-section of society in there. You're going to have the keeners and the not-so-keeners. Younger intermediate employees, like I said, it was like I was kind of wasting their time. They got on it, profiles were all done, you know, personal interests, pictures. I mean, during the training it was funny because we were telling them how to insert photos into the media gallery. There were guys going online, importing video and photos and stick them in the training account. So I ended up having to clear the training accounts out every night, 16 of them per session every night, because they were filling up with all this nonsense, people downloading YouTube videos of cats sliding off of beds and stuff. But it was just like, yeah, it's water off a duck's back to me. It's 3 hours of my life. I could be doing something else, right? You know, one guy said, I kind of got it. I could have gone golf. I could have got around to golfing, you know. It's like, well, I know you get it, but you still have to be here. It's mandatory training. Let the senior leadership engagement is critical. This is anything. If the senior leaders won't walk the walk, nobody else is going to do it apart from the keeners. You need that, what I call the clay layer. You've got the senior leadership, you've got the, and it's not by senior leadership juniors, but I'm talking the enthusiastic go-getters of any age and any part of their career who are in their company, people are in. There's a clay layer in every firm. That's the one that's really hard to permeate, to get them to get in and get engaged. And if they see their leaders not doing it and modeling the way, that layer is going to kill you. So the senior leadership have to, for example, day one, John Burnside, blog, welcome to Connects. This is a great system. I love it. I was keen getting it. Suddenly everybody in the clay layer is like, the president likes this system. Maybe I should go and have a look at it, if nothing else for my own self-worth, my own self-survival. Let the staff use the system the way it suits them, where possible within established corporate guidelines. You have to have a social collaboration guideline. You have to have rules or to be chaos. We set up the use cases scenarios. Everything I've created fits in those 4 cases. But don't prescribe use to people. And I'm an ops guy. I'm in charge of policy. I'm in charge of insurance, risk management. I'm the company's policeman, effectively. And people were kind of like looking at me all kind of, you know, that sort of like confused dog look and tilting their heads, huh? When I said, I'm not going to prescribe the use of this. I'm not going to hammer you to use this. It's a tool I've given you to make your lives easier. Choose to use it, choose not to use it. But let me tell you, if 30% of the staff in this company use it, the other 70% won't have a chance because that 30% is going to drive all the knowledge. So if you're in a project team and you're not in the community that Steve Riley set up, how are you going to work? How's that going to work? It's not. You're going to have to get involved. So what we're finding is that group of people who are engaged in using it are driving it, but I'm not saying you must have a wiki, you must do this, you must communicate in this fashion. It completely negates the whole concept of social collaboration, social media, which is really much more of a loose, ethereal construct than email communication or company policy. And I found that freedom has allowed people to be comfortable and engage as they feel warranted and as they feel comfortable with it and say, I'm okay using the activity template, right? Like, let's try doing a blog. Rather than, Steve, why isn't there a blog in here? Steve's gonna be like, Dave, bugger off. Like, I'm done. I checked out. And I think that's an incredibly important thing for something like Connects that is effectively a construct of the social media, social collaboration world. I also think when you're engaged in it, don't go to people in your company and say, hey, social, social, social. Because you use that word, right? And remember, we kind of had that conversation with John, and John's like, yeah, I understand, the president of the company, I understand, but it's going to freak people out. And I had comments when I first started getting involved in this and showing people like the brochure and the little bits and pieces on the internet, like, yeah, I can't have my staff sat at their desks all day tweeting their friends or tweeting their colleagues or doing Facebook stuff. And it was like, okay, we have that mindset that social media is all about finding out what Kim Kardashian is doing today. So I had to kind of contextualize that this isn't Twitter, it isn't Facebook, it isn't Instagram, it's not LinkedIn, it's all of those things for an internal purpose, okay? Be available to every user for follow-up, right? This is particularly important for some staff who are really trepidatious about getting into the system. An example, we have one senior engineer who's not a systems guy. He's not actually a computer guy. He laments the days of having his table and drawing his drawings and everything else. And he was having trouble. And I was saying, like, okay, let's sit and let's go through this. I spent an hour with him. And he's now a power user. This guy uses this every minute of the day. If I see my newsletter for every day, it's like, Brian posted this, Brian commented on this, Brian posted that, Brian posted. He understands. And it's that extra invested time. The bridge guy, same thing. Let's think about it. Think about how this works. Downslope benefits, downslope consequences, okay? And get users to sing about their own success stories. Don't, as the implementer, be the success story guy, because people say, yeah, you're just trying to promote your own product, you're sniffing your own gas. Get the people, get success stories and post them in this. Make sure they write them, they post them. Okay, that's a process I'm going through right now of identifying success stories and getting people to write those stories in the system. So it's coming from the horse's mouth. It's not coming from the horse's arses, my dad used to say. So it's really about, getting the good news out there. Because if the colleagues are gonna sing the praise, then guess what? They're gonna listen to them. They're engineers. I'm the ops guy with a history degree, right? I give them stuff. I give them rules and structures and all this other stuff. They need to be able to hear it from somebody who uses it to do that job, okay? And like I said, we've got success right across the board from some people who've been with the company 30 years to people who've been with the company 3 months, okay? But what you find is I'm finding adoption in technology is not being changed. It's not bottom down, top down anymore. There's a lot of bottom up changes coming in the workplace, particularly with information technology and systems. It's the users in the field and the users in society that are generating some of the stuff we're seeing now, and you're adapting to it as it goes. Okay, and that's why freedom of use is important. So that's it. I've done rambling. Has anybody got any questions? I've stunned you into silence.
Is this an app? Just thinking on a day in the life of one of your staff.
Yeah.
This is a browser window that you have open all the time while you're doing whatever else you might be doing.
Yep.
Doing drawings or doing design work.
So
you just have this sort of as something on the side.
the question is this something you have open all day as you work in the daily work world? And the answer to that is, depends on what your work is and where you are in your workday. But we have staff that are living in this. We have staff that go in and out of it. We have some staff that are kind of in it some days and not other days, depending on where they are. But the reason why we like this and we like the licensing and all that is you don't have to. I'll give you an example. Our old document management system, we had seat licenses. So you had concurrent licensing. As more and more people use the system, you're getting these emails, can somebody please log out of Adept if you're not using it? Can somebody please? This allows people to just have it open. And I see examples. I mean, I live in this, but I'm biased because I'm kind of in charge of it. But we have lots of technical staff when you walk past their office, and I do this just to keep an eye on utilization and you know who's using what. I walk past people's offices that have the luxury of 2 screens, and there's quite a few of them have got this open on their system. And we're seeing that more because as we link our systems together and use that informational pivot concept I talked about, they don't have to be in FileNet to get the contract. They can be in here. This is a much more user-friendly environment than FileNet. FileNet's great, But FileNet's a content warehouse. This is an interactive tool that gets people talking, so it's a lot more, there's more intuition in the interface of it. So people like getting data out of the system. So as we see more and more data going into FileNet, as we migrate our data and people are linking documents to their project sites, you're going to see more and more people spending time in here, for sure.
Further to Dave's comment there, so a lot of the things within Connections can be done from where you're working, within the context of what you're working in. So if you're in a Microsoft Office application here, or Word or Excel, you can access and take that content, put it right into Connections, or take content from Connections and put it into that Word document. There's also connectors, for instance, for your My Computer, so your File Explorer. So if you need to access files within Connections, you double click on My Computer and there it is. And you can browse the files and extract the data right then and there, comment on the data. You don't necessarily have to go to the website. Same thing with a lot of people live in their inbox, right? Whether it's Outlook or whether it's IBM Mail. There's widgets that bolt right into those products that allow you to access the communities, access the activities. So if I have an activity and there's an email that came in from a customer, and I want to take that email and drop it into that activity because it's important. That correspondence should be captured somewhere. I just drag and drop it right into that activity and it drops it right there. So while you can access everything from the web interface, there's tools and widgets that integrate into numerous platforms that allow you to access all this content and work with it right within the context of where you're working.
We should probably talk to the guest model as well.
That's kind of something. So in prior models, internal use was totally different than external use. Now one of the things that IBM's done, which is great, is if you have external people who are not employees, it's free of charge for them to take part. So you can create a community, say you work with a supplier or a consultant or anybody who's not full-time employees of your firm. You can add them as guests to a community. You don't have to pay for any licensing for those individuals, which is new. In the past, we had a separate licensing model that was extranet based, but it was a separate chargeable item. Depending on the setup, it could have been material cost, so this has really been welcome. And this is true about pretty much everything we talked about today. So the real-time collaboration, you can have external people join a web meeting, for example. You don't have to pay anything additional for that. You can have them take part in the communities, the forums. They can be uploading files and commenting on your files and working real effectively with these external people. So we walk the walk. When we do projects with our customers, we'll actually create external facing communities and let them log in, and it's as wonderful for them as it is for us because we can all see what's going on, and it lightens the load on both sides to work together. It's really quite wonderful.
Following up on that, I heard about this coming out of the Connects conference that Dave Wilkinson went to, and when it was confirmed this was happening, because I never announced software development for any firm until I know it's actually coming, because Q2 2020, like whatever. When I started telling more client-focused people and project managers that this was coming, because the big hurdle for us was the costing model to do it externally for a company our size, there was a huge amount of heads up, eyes bright, so my clients can get into a community now and work with us and do this and this and this and this. I said, yeah. He goes, that's huge. That's huge because we can create customer-focused portals effectively, interfacing with the staff. Now, there's a certain level of social collaboration and social media maturity that you need internally. You don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry firing off every comment. You don't want to have a conversation in a community that's client-facing about what an idiot the client's project manager is. There are risks. But I think what they've seen is this is a big deal from a brand recognition and a client service perspective, in the sense that the client now feels like you've invested to create something specifically for them they can interact with their engineers with. And there's a lot of excitement about when this comes down the pipe. I'm actually getting badgered. But unfortunately, my life became a little bit human resource complicated in the last 2 weeks. So some things that were priorities are not quite priorities anymore. So, and then my wife buggered off to Geraldton for a week to go to work. And I'm now managing children between swimming and soccer and a bunch of other stuff.
And you were asked to speak at this.
Oh, and then I had to come down here and do this. So, but yeah, that external facing piece, I think IBM made a very, very, very smart move by revising their methodology in terms of licensing to allow firms to do it without the additional cost. Because for us, it was a cost thing. but the benefit for us is it's going to be huge.
Well, we've got clients that we're pretty much ready to kick off the external phase. A lot of people started internally and said, we want to get our arms around this internally, then we'll use it externally. So we've completed, we're far enough in, they've got the maturity with their workforce-facing initiatives, and now they're looking at doing it externally. Well, guess what? All we have to do is upgrade you to the latest version if you're on premises, or if you're in the cloud, you get the upgrades automatically. You're ready to go. And IBM have done quite a nice job in that if there's a guest who's external to the company, there's a visual indicator that this is an external user. If you're going to comment on a file, for example, if that file can be seen by external participants, it'll also notify you. So IBM have made some pretty smart decisions there. The other neat thing that our customers have been pretty excited about is that they can brand communities for their clients. So if they're going to create an external facing community, and this would be a statement about the on-premises version of the software, but they'll often brand it with their customer's logo and branding and make that client feel like it's a really special, welcoming experience for them. So that's been a lot of
And creating a community honestly takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Logistically, I just send a link to my client and they are in or sign in or something?
So to have your client join the community, let's say you've created the community, which again, it's a few clicks. We always say, to Dave's point, it takes more time to analyze it and decide how we're going to set it up than it does to do it. So you've created this community. You add your internal people as members or invite them as members. For the external people, when you invite them, you put in their email address. That's it. Then you're going to pop up and ask for their first name and their last name. And there's an optional place where you can put a notification message in. They will receive an email indicating that they've been invited to join this community, and with your message as appropriate, and then they can join, and then they can still populate their own profile, they can upload their photo, they can do a lot of the things that you can do. Now their access is firewalled into the communities that you've given them membership over. So for example, when we talk about the activity stream, it's really common to post things with the expectation that everybody in my network inside the company will see them, and a lot of interesting things happen in the stream. Many of those things maybe shouldn't be visible to every external participant in your company, so they don't see the broader activity stream. They see the activity stream within that community. And the other interesting use case that we run into a lot, there's a couple constructs that Dave touched on, but so sub-communities and related communities. You can have a community that's internal only, so only your people are part of it, and have a related community that you let external people, so customers or vendors or partners or consultants, whoever the people in question are, can log into. And you're only one click away to jump back and forth. And maybe in the external facing community, you have things that are suitable for consumption of these external participants. Internal, you might have some conversations going on in parallel. You want to get your ducks in a row before replying in the external community and whatnot. So it's really quite an effective way to do it. To the degree you can, you want to do it once. So what we found at Castlebrack is we don't have a lot to hide. Sometimes factually we don't want to mislead, so we'll do a little bit of work internally to make sure that we do have the right answer before replying in that external community. But we do as much of the work where the customer can see it as we can, because it's actually easier for us and for them to do so. So it's pretty wonderful.
And that's what we're doing right now amongst a small group of people. We're kind of thinking, okay, we've been in this a year. Where's our level of social media / collaboration? Really, it's about the communication. It comes down to communication like email. Where are we with the maturity internally as a company to now communicate externally about things that, in our business, litigation, right? In our business is about honesty and openness with the client, but there's always stuff you don't want them to see behind the scenes. You don't want them to see the man behind the curtain, right? Because there's things going on there where engineers and contractors are fighting about stuff, and there's, I can't stand this guy, we've got to deal with this problem, he's getting in the way. You don't want your client knowing you're having an argument with one of your subcontractors. But there's a lot of benefit. And one of the things, like our international guys are very excited about the fact is our international deployments will hire dozens of subcontractors to work on very complex multi-regional projects like Mozambique. We can't give them access to the Connects communities. We can't because they're not employees. With the new model, now everybody on the team can have the same access. We don't have to worry that Jordan Phillips has to fly to Mozambique, he has a meeting with the subcontractors, and all the information that's in Connects has to be put into an external medium, usually printed, right, or emailed, and then given to these guys in isolation, okay? And, the cost of conference calls overseas and Ever see some phone bills of guys on their BlackBerry talking to some guy in Maputo from Orangeville on a weekend? It's apocalyptic. So it's a very exciting development for us, because I think this is a lot of stuff a lot of our big client guys were waiting on for their full, I'm going to wholeheartedly jump in, right? Because some people who face clients, this stuff is good, but they're kind of still trying to figure out, I don't do projects, I'm a client guy, how do I engage? Well, now world's your oyster, man. Just make your clients happy and give them that customized environment where the client will actually say, these people care enough that they've created something just for me, and it's efficiency. Yes?
So coming from IBM, I guess the big blue monster, this is the tool that we use day in and day out, and we create communities to work around, say, larger opportunities where we'll involve the customer, say, on an engagement opportunity where we'll be on premise working with them hand in hand, larger renewals, large contracts that are coming up, to be able to ensure that our focus is on where they need us focused. They can provide us input and feedback, and it's a collaborative conversation rather than back and forth across the table in a more argumentative. This is allowing you guys to be able to ensure everybody is working with the same information, so there are no surprises. So you can also demonstrate your strength if you're a smaller organization. Having the key people in those communities is key to be able to show the client that you have the capability that they require. If you're a large organization like IBM, I'm able to fill that community up with, if I need financing in there, if I need partners in there. We put the right people in those groups to connect with our clients to make sure that they're fully serviced and they're satisfied with the direction we're helping them move forward. So you can use it pre-deal, once things have been kicked off, as a way to manage the project, and then develop and start testing for the renewal and subsequent phases. One thing I'm really, really ecstatic about is for my own personal sort of utilitarian need is to use this to have the contract negotiations with counsel or paralegals or the risk management people at clients, because it is literally email volleyball. Because this is not the sort of thing that you can phone and say, hey, clause 6, subsection 3, paragraph 2, the third line, can you change is to or? You can't. It's got to be documented. It's got to be on paper. So what you get? Track change nightmare. Or email, and then some poor sucker, either me or the other guy, has then got to take those changes and put them into the document. Well, if I could have a forum conversation where we said, section 6, let's discuss, resolved. Section 14, let's resolved. I got a record. I can print it up. I can save it. It's there forever as long as I don't delete it, right? I have that, and now I know what needs to be done in the document. I still have to make the changes, but I don't have to go and I find this. Some companies you work for, it's 25 emails back and forth, and by the end of it, you're like, what did we discuss? Like, seriously, did we cover Article 6?
Did they agree to this point? What was our take on that point?
Yeah. So I think for me, in a utilitarian way, and in my own personal world, business line use case scenario, oh yeah, it's gonna be good.
It humanizes people too. So I find that communication by email just has a different character than in this platform. So this is one such an example. When you're going through a contract, building goodwill on both sides is incredibly important, because if you really feel a sense of rapport with each other, it's easier to come to mutual ground and get that contract done, no matter what the nature of the contract is, right? So I find that such a platform humanizes people. If you get emails back and forth, especially from somebody you don't really know, haven't met in person, haven't broke bread with, it's a little bit different character than social collaboration. Yeah. So with IBM Connections, every time that person comments, their photo's there, you hover over them, their profile shows up, you can see their other interactions. It's amazing what it does to make that feel like a real human being on the other end of the conversation. Yeah. And in other areas of the business where it humanizes, I find it humanizes executives a lot. So something that we hear repeatedly, so back to your comment about the signal processing and the clay layer, senior executives, when asked, cite repeatedly one of their biggest fears is, even if they believe that they've maybe collected information at all levels of the organization, once a strategy is established and they're trying to execute on something, the biggest fear is it won't be embraced. It won't truly be embraced by all the employees, especially lower level in the org chart. they'll yes them, they'll say they're doing it, but do they truly embrace it and do they truly get it? So when the platform humanizes the leaders, you get the zen of what they're saying a little bit more. You get that's the person, the personality, the human being of our leaders, and you feel more connected to them and more likely to embrace the message. So the outcome of that is that the same message delivered through different means can have a profoundly different impact and reception by the recipients. So.
And one thing internally I suggest as best practice, and if people are engaged in this or want to do this, I've always told people, based on this concept of humanization, is put something in your profile about you that people don't know. You know, I'm a competitive sweater knitter or whatever it is, you know.
We won't compel you to do it, but
yeah, but do it
if
because
you feel comfortable, do it.
Well, it gives people the side, and particularly leaders, because leaders are often seen. I've come up through the ranks of my career, and I realize my leaders now at a higher level are human beings. They have kids and they have problems, and the dog gets sick and whatever. When I was a junior entry-level person in the firm, I was like, oh my God, that's the president. I'm going to go hide in the corner.
Who is he to you? He's the senior VP,
Yeah.
he's the president. That role is who that person is to you.
Big
That's
change.
the human character of
But
it.
big change in the workforce, and again, I reference back to the huge amount of research, and everybody's going on about millennials. It's because we have so much data on millennials that we can actually make some conclusions. Millennial mindset is they respect authority, they respect the chain of command, they follow it, but they want to see their leaders as human beings, as people who get them. It's a little, you know, they want to understand where these guys are coming from. And so I encourage all the staff to put stuff in. And it's funny, Dave Wilkinson's a big bike, he likes to motorcycle. He's talked, I don't know whether he's done it, but he's talked about, because of the feedback to his profile, getting a community for motorcycle enthusiasts going. One woman was talking about, you know, in her profile how challenging it is at home to deal with her kid who's got autism. She's had conversations with other people in the firm whose kids have autism, right? That's a powerful thing to do at work. That level of human connection at work, we're losing that in this age. So ironically, it's the information technology that's bringing people together. It sounds like a commercial, I know, but you know, I don't work for Verizon, but it is the information technology that is bringing some people together in conversations never had. So I was a competitive rugby player in England for 10 years. So that's given openings for staff to talk to me. Some juniors who probably wouldn't approach me say, hey, did you play rugby in England? Really? Who'd you play for? I played for Newcastle, and I played for, you know, Gateshead, and I played for the, really? Oh, yeah. And I said, yeah, and I used to hang out with some guys on the England team, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm having a conversation, so I'm just a person having a conversation with another person. I'm not the VP having a conversation with Joey, the 3-year EIT, right, who is kind of trying to find his way, right? So I think it's a really important thing, and it's part of this that we kind of forget, is the psychological and human side of it when we're doing this, because it's, you know, we get involved in process and use case scenarios and ROIs and, you know, KPIs and all this other stuff, and we forget that, you know, you can leverage tools like this to actually make your company closer together, right? One thing, you know, I noticed that comments around the passing of relations for our staff, when they're done in connections, there's a lot more empathetic response, and the volume of response, hopefully it's genuine, but there's a lot more people say, you know, I'm really sorry, Mary, that your mom passed. That must be tough. My mom passed a few years ago. I found it hard. You know, that sort of thing. That's part of, for me, the values of my firm. That's important, because we say we're a family. So if we're a family, then it's not just about, hey, Joe, hear about the baseball game last night, I'm going to go to work now, and then go home. And there's a lot of that. And I think, you know, we have seen some side of this that does help people integrate socially, which is awesome. I've said it's a business tool, but it's not, I mean, it just has to be about numbers. So
There's different sides to the ROI. So in terms of anything that makes people feel an affinity for each other and an affinity for the company, it's absolutely massive. And it's hard to directly measure it, but it really is huge. Anything that makes them not treat the workplace as a place they trade time for money, even if it's professionally interesting and inspiring to them, it's part of their identity, who they are. The firm is a big part of their
spend
life.
more time at work than you do awake at your own house.
So that's huge.
Which is,
on the execution side, I don't know if you have any comments about your experience, but what some people have mentioned is, okay, if we had one extra win we wouldn't have had, what's that worth to us? If we had a few extra wins a year in business development or sales, your nomenclature may differ by industry, how do we quantify that? If we have avoid a customer satisfaction issue and some key clients a few times a year, we know how much more expensive it is to attract a client than it is to retain a client.
Yeah.
If we avoid poor execution, litigation can be prohibitively expensive in indirect costs as well as direct costs. So if over the next 10 years we avoid one such incident through executing a little bit better, do you have any internal discussions on any of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to move to it as people start to think about the system. And I said, like, our evolution has not been like super fast because I don't want to push people. I want people to learn their own stuff. I want them to get involved and say, I had a good idea. Maybe we should talk about why we didn't win that proposal. And then I go in and sort of say, that's a good idea. You should do that. And then it generates conversations and it generates knowledge. And I think as a strategic tool, they do it verbally in meetings. But I think there's a growing, in certain parts of the job, there's a growing acknowledgement that maybe the 3 senior managers shouldn't just be the 3, it should be a bunch of people. So there is more of that going on. This Barrie and area group that we have, client services group, they regularly talk about why they won, why they didn't win.
Brilliant.
And you can't aggregate the knowledge into a spreadsheet, but what you can do is you can see trends. And you'll see occasionally more senior people will jump in and say, didn't we just replicate a mistake we made 3 weeks ago on that other proposal? Why did we do that? Oh, well, John and Phil didn't talk to each other about this, and now it's there and people can read it. And if they want to be conscientious, they can say, oh, that didn't work for John. Maybe we need to think about this or that. Or even, and hell, use it as a springboard for a phone conversation or a face-to-face meeting. I'm not saying you have to have every conversation in here, but jumpstart some conversation and jumpstart some sharing of knowledge by putting in your good things and your bad things.
Well, heck, if somebody's on a future opportunity and sees that debrief, executes a little bit better, again, it may be hard to know exactly why you will win or lose opportunity by opportunity all of the time,
No.
but if you leverage those learnings at all, we've seen other sales teams that aggregate competitive intelligence. All of them in different geos are out talking to customers all the time, so take that information, put it into a competitive community. So if you have different business units in the company or sectors as you organize, find out what your competitors are saying to the customer, aggregate that. Otherwise, when does that tend to get shared? Well, if you have sales organizations, you have your quarterly or semi-annual sales meetings, everybody comes together, and amidst the formal agenda, there's a lot of informal because they share their challenges.
And one of the other things is, okay, so we do a lot of municipal engineering. We have good intelligence, right? Like we have really good intelligence in terms of we know our clients very well. We spend a lot of time knowing those clients. I mean, we get invited to weddings. We know our clients so well. It's a good thing sometimes. Makes it difficult to ask for the check sometimes. But one of the things is I live in Guelph, Hermosa Township. I read the Wellington Advertiser, which is this wonderful little sort of rural paper. But there's always things in there about, the township's considering doing this with the bridge on 7th line. And you're like, hey, did you guys know that the township's thinking about, it doesn't, that scenario where the town engineer, so of course we know. But leveraging those things is important, eh? Like, my wife works at this company and they're looking at this opportunity. Well, my wife doesn't talk to me about business anymore because guess what? If she knows something, Burnside knows something, right? I look at it this way, we're married, but at the same time we're competitors. It's kind of like that Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie. The thing is that I think if you leverage the day-to-day street knowledge of your staff on the ground, that can provide some knowledge. Maybe for every 100 things that hit the wall, only 2 stick, lead to something. You may not win them, but it leads them. It's better than nothing, right? A lot of our, we do a lot of municipal engineering. Most of our staff live in the country. We are known as the farmer engineers, right? So we're hooked into our local communities really well. And for your own business, that local intelligence is important, and bringing in new connections, right? Met with a guy that I found through a reference on connections to something that somebody was doing in a structural project. Met with this guy because he provides, maintenance, facilities maintenance and stuff. Hooked him up with a former colleague of mine who does facilities maintenance and had him talk about resumes. So it's not just about the project or the business, it's about the people. And I think if you can utilize every piece of intelligence you can, it's important because our company don't work in big data. We don't do analytics in terms of, on projects bid on a Tuesday afternoon that are between $5,000 and $10,000 for the City of Toronto, we only win when Mike's wearing blue pants. We don't get into that level of detail. It's like, for us, it's a very iterative process where we sit down and say, the history with this client's not very good. They're not good payers. We can bring data up from Deltec to say the average payment for our AR is 120 days. we can do that. When you're bidding on work, sometimes it requires local knowledge. But I've always said this, the world's changed, and this is fundamental to this point of sharing. People who hoard knowledge now are the outsiders, right? If you look at the world, why is Sandy Carter, everybody knows who Sandy Carter is, because Sandy Carter shares everything. Sandy Carter hasn't had an idea she hasn't tweeted or posted in LinkedIn or whatever. I learned a ton from Sandy Carter in terms of social collaboration stuff. First book I ever read, Get Bold. You were thinking about going this, read that book. And the whole point is people who are seen as knowledge leaders either in a company, right, or externally, they're the winners. Senior engineer, he's the guy I'm talking about. He's on there all the time. Guys, do this. This is what I did. Before he was this like crusty old person that nobody really paid any attention to. Now he's a thought leader. He shares. Even internally, people who do this and say, I have the information, you must come to me. That kind of almost kingship entitlement of knowledge, that's dying fast. Those people are dinosaurs. So I even say, look, when it comes to building business, don't be the guy who says, well, I know this client. We've had this in my company, other companies, you guys probably had. You got sales guys, know every client, know their kids' names, birthdays, hockey tournaments. If they get hit by a bus, you are screwed. So a lot of times, my dad was a salesman. My dad was old school British salesman. So my dad had it all in here. No PDAs, no notes, nothing. It was all in his brain. And he took the form when he retired because they kind of said, hey, Art, you're 60, you're useless. Here's a big golden handshake. We need to hire some 20-year-old guys to do your job. They called him back as a consultant because he figured, well, I don't owe them anything. I'm taking my institutional knowledge with me. That's chronic. And in this generational turnover we're coming up to where the boomers are retiring, we see it in our firm. Our principals are not like physically, but career-wise, they're dropping like flies. They're cashing in their shares, they're going to Florida. They're cashing their shares, they're going to Arizona. They're cashing in their shares, they're moving to their cottage. We need to take their brains out and virtualize their brain because what they've got in there is 20 years of knowledge that poor little Carly has got to learn because Carly's now in one of the hot seats. She's only 30, right? So it's important whether it's business development, technical knowledge, and sharing is so important these days. You can't rely on these gurus who sit on top of the hill like the Oracle at Delphi and give you knowledge when you need it, because who do they know what you need when you need it, right?
Share some more.
Yep.
You feel like you've been exploited, share even more. As opposed to if you're familiar with the journeyman and apprentice mentality in the skilled trades, where the journeyman hoarded knowledge and give just a tiny little bit of knowledge the apprentice needed to do that one minute task at hand and wanted to hoard, and it's just done.
Yeah.
It's just done now. People's careers are on an upward trajectory because they share.
Yeah.
And it's visible on such a platform.
Yeah. And sharing actually helps in one sense. I've seen this recently since I've been through a kind of enforced restructuring of my group.
Yes, I got to get going.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for being
No,
rude, but
it's
is
all right.
there somebody here that we can talk to about licensing or something like that?
By all means, would you like to set up a call?
Sure, that'd be great.
And I think part of the thing is that people are going to exploit sharing. People are going to take credit. And I look at it from the perspective of I just don't get excited by it, right? Like if people want to take credit for my ideas, whatever. The slow steady horse wins the race. And if people are going to exploit your ideas because you share, it'll come up and get to them eventually, right? I mean, it is what it is. But for sure, I mean, even now, the power of sharing is great because I've downloaded a lot of my institutional knowledge about stuff like this. I'm still the guy, technically. Deltec, FileNet, that's my job. I'm supposed to be the big thinker. But the day-to-day stuff I've downloaded, I don't need it. Why? Because if I'm tied up with this, creating communities and adding wikis and what am I? I'm an overpaid system administrator. I don't have time to add value. And I think a lot of people are seeing if they share knowledge and people aren't constantly bugging them, they can add value. They can actually do stuff like mentor that new engineer rather than answer the same question 15 times in a day. So
what do you guys see in terms of use cases for your businesses? Do you have any thoughts, or could you extrapolate at all, or questions?
Well, there's plenty usages for our company. I just need to. I'm here to more support our IT department as an advocate for our IT, but
actual application of it. That's the only thing I would, just not being an IT guy myself, I'm more of how do we compartmentalize, the stuff I need organized,
Mhm.
and it certainly does the trick.
One thing is discovery. A good discovery session with key influencers and key leaders really helps you coalesce your, like I said, I'm the idea guy, right? I did one of these sort of personality profiles for my leadership development thing, and I'm idea led. So I guess that's why I did an arts degree. It is true. I have like 300 ideas a day, and I throw them all at a wall and see which ones stick. What it does is, so I had like 55 use case scenarios or something, and we coalesced them down to 4 because actually they are 4. So having that discovery process really helps if you've got lots of voices in the room to come to a consensus to how to use it. Because I think the less use case scenarios you have, officially makes the system easier to conceptualize. But within the use case scenario, like projects, well, we have 2,000 projects and we have 14 different technical groups, so they're all kind of different. Within use case scenario, staff communication, but we have office, health and safety, HR, policies. We have one on how to use Burnside Connects. We have one on how to use our new Cisco VoIP phones. So it's communication. It's a big picture, and then people can use them as they want. But that's what gives you the guideline. I hate using the word silos. That gives you those buckets of how to use it. And I think that's what people need, because if you just go and say, blah, use it completely the way you want to, everybody's going to stood there like a deer in the headlights going, okay, I don't have a clue. If you prescribe some general guidelines, people are smart. With the right leadership, they'll pick it up and they'll run with it, right?
You may have seen every community day opened. You weren't over at Point Renew, but in the community it says, well, what's this community for? And some general suggestions about how to use it. If you don't put that, people will make educated guesses that might be rather surprising to you. Not because they're trying to be difficult, but they reach different conclusions. But given a little bit of practice guidance for them, I like to use the term self-evidence. So put it right on screen, right where they need it, make it easy for them. And most people are really good. They'll, for the most part, do what you ask. And if they disagree, then there's a place to make suggestions to better it. And it is the key piece is making yourself available, even though it is in terms of time management and getting other work done. It's a killer. It's making I suffer from the problem that I become the implementation team, so the post-implementation is me. Luckily that didn't happen with FileNet because I kind of checked out. You've got to invest that extra time with the people when they come to you and say, look, I'm having a little trouble figuring this wiki thing out. Can you kind of guide me through it? You got to spend the time. Those are the wins that are worth it. You're going to get the people who are like, the structural guys, oh, we get this, we get it. We live in this world, it's great, we've done it, no problems. It's the ones that you get that you lead, or you don't lead them, you kind of work in partnership with them for them to get to a place where they're comfortable. They find a win that they've discovered themselves with you kind of managing them along. Those are the guys that come out of the gate going, I had an epiphany. This thing's awesome. The people who use it enthusiastically, they're enthusiastic. They're enthusiastic about cornflakes most of the time, right? So that's kind of like not your real impact. Your real impact is those people in the post-implementation that are kind of floundering. You know they want to. You know they kind of, but you just get them over the hurdle. I found from my experience, those are the people who become your champions, and they become your enthusiastic adopters. And they're the ones that are pushing others to say, look, dude, I didn't get it, but then I worked through it, and guess what? It saved me like 5 hours a week. This is awesome. You've got to do this. And then, he told a friend, they told a friend, they told a friend, and it's the earworm thing, and it does work. So I think that's for me the key piece of the implementation would be making sure you have the capacity to physically spend time with people to get them over the intellectual hurdles that they're going to encounter. Because some people are going to adapt to this no problems, and other people are going to be like, oh my, what? You could see some people, the blood trickling out their ears during training session, checking their cell phones. And I was like, making notes. Okay, he's checked out, Harvey's checked out, and those are the people I followed up on and said, so what do you think? And some of them said, biggest waste of time in my life. Okay, I'll park you for a bit because you're going to be work. What do you think? Yeah, I kind of get what you're doing with this thing, but I don't get Facebook. I don't, and then you have to explain to them it's not Facebook. It's based on constructs of social media, which are common across all these things. And then you start saying to them, well, what do you do every day that is pain in your communication, your knowledge life? And you work the individual, what I call DNA tailored medicine, right? Each individual has a different engagement, and you have to adopt to that. It's time consuming, it can be painful, it's tiring.
frustrating. The LCBO will make a lot more money off of you during that process. The cat will get kicked, but the victory at the end is you've got somebody who you've actually worked with. Again, you've humanized each other. You've got a success, and they're the ones that are really going to be engaged. And like I said, those are the guys that are contributing the most stuff to the system now, right?
One thing I wanted to clarify is, so in your case, we did a top-down enterprise-wide implementation. With many customers, we're kind of surgical. We'll do a pilot, pick a couple teams. Ideally, if you're doing a subset of a community, you pick teams that actually have communication patterns between them so that we know that it's sensible, and that they can really clearly identify, okay, for this particular case, all the players involved are part of this pilot and I can use it, and they'll start using it for not every single thing they do, but a good chunk of their day. Or if their entire team's on it, it can be a pretty material part of their day that they can use it on. It's not your whole enterprise, but if you're smart about it, it's not all or nothing. It doesn't have to be a huge monolithic implementation. You can really get quick wins without killing yourself. Yeah. And in some companies, that's the right way to do it, is to pick those initial use cases, pick the teams, pick something that makes sense for a pilot, pick the right people that you believe will support it in the first place. If the business unit or leader of that part supports it, that helps. And show that success, then go enterprise-wide with a demonstrated success in your pocket already. So it's that's been helpful. Yeah. But
we took kind of a shotgun model approach, just based on timelines and the need to get the thing out and the business. And
well, you were in with 2 feet. It made sense in your case. It worked.
Yeah, it worked. But it's different for every company, right? I know companies that implement stuff like this, and they work on pilots for a year before they roll it out, and they test every possible permutation. That's probably going too far in that direction, but it's what the company's comfortable with, and it's what they think success is going to look like. Because you have to establish that at the beginning, right? What does success look like in this endeavor? If the success looks like every person contributing to something every day, then you're going to fail miserably. So you kind of have to define, what does that look like? And I tend to take broad strokes because I think people, they like broad strokes. If you do it, it'll probably make your life easier. Yeah, sure, there's some pain at the start to get all this stuff together, but it's aggregated time. It's the same concept. I link it back to mentoring their junior staff. Sure, there's pain and time and effort involved in mentoring a guy to tell him how to build this. And okay, we're going to, and you got it wrong, and here it is again, and okay, better, but do this. But once he learns it, you never have to do it again, right? And that's kind of the philosophical or psychological sort of process that I had to work through with some people. Is an hour in if an hour in is 1 hour and 1 minute saved, that hour's worth it, right? If anybody ever wants to talk to me after today, which considering how much I've talked, you may never want to hear another word from me. I've got business cards. Feel free to connect with me. Sure. Names, numbers, all sorts of good stuff. I am usually available. I'm willing, when time permits, if you guys move forward with things and you want a real world person to bounce ideas off of, I'm happy to do that as well. I'm a big fan. I don't care if it's my industry or other industries. I'm a big fan of promoting products I believe in, right? And firms that I've worked with that I believe in. So if you guys ever need a question or want to bounce an idea or sanity check something, I might not get exactly what you do, but I think the system is, it is what it is. So I'm more than happy to. I'm not going to try to steal bread out of Colin's mouth, but sometimes I like to sanity check things off third parties. I do it all the time with my applications. Other users who've been in it before.
We have inherently more credibility than we do. Us saying we're the best, just ask us. So
I have no credibility. I just talk a lot.
Thank you so much for.
Oh, no problems. Today. Probably went longer than I thought, but thank you for coming. The good thing is, that's a record. Half the room's gone. Normally it's 3/4. Yeah, great. There you go.
Follow up about your team and you can share a bit of your specifics.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you for coming, sticking through. Appreciate it.
We're actually a big Lotus Notes user. That is our main custom applications built in Notes. So a lot of the concepts are very similar. The difference is you can add in different pieces, like bringing in different users. So.
We've been an ardent Notes user for ages. So, you get a lot of new people coming. What is Notes? Is that looking like? it is what it is. It works for us, so who cares?
No, it's been a very good, well, we keep evolving. There's obviously new features.
It's not like you're in a situation where people that use Outlook can't communicate with most users, right? There's some frustrations because they gotta be more smart. They want market share. So sometimes some of their products work better with Outlook, but they didn't know it, right? But that is what it is, right? It's